like, right? It's the gingerbread house, right? You know what I mean? It's like the Amazon is like, yo, do you want some cheap shit delivered to your house? Yes, cheap shit. Oh, you can get more shit. Come on and order some more. If you order more, we'll knock off shipping for you. Yeah, there you go. And the whole time they're operating on a loss. The whole time they're feeding you their house, you know. And once you get, like, you know, enough gingerbread in you, they throw you in the fucking oven and they raise the prices back up on you. It's just like the gingerbread house. So don't get eaten by the wicked witch of Amazon. Okay, funny metaphor. But the other thing about this that I really wanted to point out, and this is the point that we hammer home on here, this is my fucking hobby horse here, is that it's not just about material conditions, which are important, but the game, the meta, is about leverage, okay?
Hey, what's going on, guys? John Burke here.
So
I do a lot of politics on Twitch. Thank you, Dylan, for having me on tonight, and all the times you come on my, excuse me, debates. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to
I didn't stream last
having
night,
some insightful discussions tonight to pick people's brains that I possibly might not agree with. Have my mind open to possibly have my opinions change on some things. I don't know. But ultimately, it's looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Okay. And last is going to be the current reigning champion, who's had a reign for about 2 months. Vaush.
John Burke.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing
John
here.
Burke
I'm a Bloodborne streamer. Last night I was
Vaush.
the first person to ever defeat
DemonMama,
Orphan of Cause, and then the Moon Spirit, whatever the fuck her name was. And I don't do debates, so really it's the wild card here.
Ragnar, it's your birthday, Ragnar.
Let me explain how the judges
I made it all 90s for you, Rob.
Do you appreciate that? 3 judges is not enough. Usually you have 3 judges to break any tie, but we could see 1 judge going for John Burke, 1 judge going for Vaush, 1 judge going to Rob, and then you have a 3-way tie. It doesn't make sense. So for this one, in the special edition, we're going to actually have 5 judges. 5 judges, so it's a lot less likely that there will be a tie. Now, a tie might still occur. There could be a scenario where Demon gets 2, and Rob gets 2, and then it's confusing because there's a tie, or Vaush gets 2, and John gets 2. Now, this is how it's going to work if the champion is involved in a tie. Now, this most likely will not happen, but I wanted to make this clear off the bat because you never know. If the champion is involved in a tie, technically, due to the rules, they retain the belt. That's how it works in boxing. That's how it works in wrestling. That's how it works here. If 2 other people get ties, then they will have a follow-up match on another week to see who gets the belt then with 3 judges, which means it'll be impossible for there to be a tie. Does everybody understand how it would work if a tie scenario occurred?
Yep.
Wonderful.
Yes. It's a great belt, Dylan.
Thank you.
It's nice.
There's
actually a belt.
Yeah, an actual belt, yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
See yourself in the reflection. I keep it polished. I shine it every single day.
Giving it the respect it deserves. Now,
I'm going
we're
hard.
going to go.
Literally send the belt
I'm going
to the winner.
hard tonight.
Yes.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
We have
I
them
want you to
custom made.
understand
We have a
something.
manufacturer who makes belts. If you win, we don't take.
I'm going hard tonight because I want to be the very best, like no one ever was, chat.
The belt back, you get to keep it forever, but we have a different reigning champion, just like boxing.
Well, that is really cool.
Thank you. We put a lot of work into the show. And for everybody out there who wants to help fund the making of those belts, because they're actually quite expensive to have custom made, you can, of course, support the channel.
What? It's not plastic?
We're going to go into the first topic, which is actually very recent news. It's about the Amazon's workers' union. The workers voted 2-1 to not form a union in Alabama. Now, a lot of people are proposing a lot of different reasons as to why this happened. And this has also spurred on a different conversation about unionization efforts in the country. So I propose a question to all of you. Why do you think the workers voted not to have a union at this Amazon facility? And what do you think this means for unionization efforts across the country?
Answer wins.
And also you can have a wider conversation about just specifically what you think of unions as well. Everybody's going to have a small intro period, and then we're going to open it up to the floor. Vaush, you wanted to ask a question quick?
Oh, no, I just wanted to know whether it was free for all or we had rounds, but you just said, so we're good.
Wonderful. So, all of you, you're going to have a 1-minute period. Please be short with the intros. Trust me, you'll have time to talk. I'm going to start it in the top right-hand corner with Rob Noor.
Okay, so, yeah, I was unaware of this until This and the third topic I was unaware of until like 10 minutes before we came on here. So with this issue, I'm not exactly pro or anti-union. I think that unions make sense in certain areas. They certainly made sense in a lot of places historically. But there are reasons for particular places of work and for particular industries where unions don't work out as well. The question is, why did these people vote not to have a union? Well, there's two possibilities, I guess. One, because they did their research, which was fair, and they determined that a union wasn't worth it there. And I got some evidence to suggest that that could be the case. Or it could be because Amazon unfairly put their finger on the scale and convince people not to have a union. Either way, like, I don't know, we'll get into the details of what could have happened. I don't see proof one way or the other. It's probably a combination of the two. Do we need more unions? Not necessarily. Always. I am in favor, though, of more workers. Unions. I think that this country, through corruption in our governorship, has taken away the value of workers in the last 50 years. And so if unions were a way to do that, that'd be fine. But you also see corruption in unions as well. So to me, the question's more about ending the corruption in our government to encourage workers getting the wages they deserve. But I'm not necessarily anti-union or pro-union. Yeah, that's basically my thoughts.
Okay. Next, I'm going to send it over to John Burke.
Yeah, I mean, basically, Rob just hit it all. Society? I think in the early days of like the 20th century, I mean, even beyond that, unions were definitely needed. You saw the working conditions of, say, for example, women in sweatshops, children in sweatshops. Even in America, when immigrants came over, they were treated very unfairly. The unionization actually helped a lot to protect them. But as with any good thing, when it involves money, you tend to see it, just like the government, slowly lean towards corruption. So I can't say that I'm pro or anti. I've never actually been involved in working for a union. I have literally no experience there, so I do need to put
that. Well, that sounds like a Vaush move.
Foremost, but
he did it on accident.
I can't generalize it. I can't sit there and say that all unions are good or all unions are bad. I feel like, according to them practicing democracy in Alabama, I believe it was, and again, I just saw this the first time. If that's how they voted, that's how they voted. I don't really have anything else to say about it, to tell you the truth. I mean, if that's how the people feel, that's how the people feel. As far as the rest of the country, I think if they're choosing to unionize as a group, I would say look into the issues behind why they're unionizing. Are their conditions or working conditions not good, poor, or whatever the case may be, and then have the discussion in regards to workers' rights regarding the labor unions. But yeah, I don't feel very passionate about this, and it's not that I feel like it's not important. I don't really know a lot about it. So
because they're a little beta.
Next is going to be DemonMama.
I find it interesting that the populace so far don't really support unions. Unions are about the best way for the populace to band together and stand up against people who have an incredible amount of resources against them. In this case, there is a lot going on in here. In fact, as it turns out, the National Labor Review Board might actually be ordering this election totally off the books and a second election to be held, because there was so much Amazon tampering in the democratic elements of this election that it can't. There's a very good chance that this election will be redone. Not only has there now been evidence revealed that Amazon was working with the USPS to provide to get an illegally placed ballot box placed on their campus, under, of course, the security cameras run by Amazon, but also that in the weeks up, the government had to order them to stop making mandatory propaganda meetings every single week that pumped out anti-union propaganda. Now, I've worked a lot of jobs in my life. I've worked a lot of minimum wage jobs. None of them have ever been able to have a union, but every single one required as a part of their training for you to watch anti-union propaganda. So if you want to know why unions have declined in America, as has the satisfaction of work, America's wages, and the benefits for America's workers, it's specifically because there's been a mass effort of anti-union propaganda pushed out by every single major corporation in the United States. So that's why union efforts fail, not just because of some democratic element. In fact, I just watched video footage this morning that in the Amazon Alabama warehouse, they were putting placards in the stall that were anti-union propaganda, so you can't even pee in peace.
Okay,
that's all I got to say on this one.
You can't even pee in peace.
Is going to be the current champion. Vaush.
You can't even pee in peace.
Yeah, I respect the results of
no
democratic elections, but that doesn't mean that those results can't be criticized, especially when there are serious inquiries into the legitimacy of that election and the extent to which other agencies influence the results. People ultimately believe what they're led to believe. And if you are a modern American worker, you are insulated at all times with the message that unions are going to be harmful to you and harmful to the economy and harmful to the business. But Of course, the data contradicts this in the extreme. Unions are far and away an incredibly effective way of ensuring the ability for workers to collectively bargain, which allows them to fight for their rights, allows them to fight for higher wages, and for a great many other things. So what we're looking at right now, and of course the dust needs to settle a bit with this particular Alabama warehouse. What we're looking at right now is the consequence, I feel, of a fairly successful decades-long campaign to stigmatize unions in the mind of the American worker. We've seen union membership drop proportionally to the percentage of total American wealth that goes to the ultra-wealthy. It's a campaign they've been waging for hundreds of years, and they're doing quite well at the moment. So while I respect democratic results, barring the results of this investigation, because it seems like Amazon had their foot on the scale, had 2 feet on the scale. While I accept democratic results, we should still wonder, why do people, why do workers so consistently vote against their own best interests? Why? What are they taught? From where are they being taught?
It's lack of class consciousness. Am I wrong? Lack of class consciousness. Okay, so that's why workers ask you all politely. Don't always do what's in their best interest. They don't know be on your best who behavior. They are. Always be nice. They're Make missing sugar your favorite spice, and you may all begin the first round. And that centers.
Yeah. So I do think it's funny that Vaush hedges right out of the gate by saying he respects the results of elections, because it sounds like what DemonMama is saying there sounds so similar to what people that question the results of the 2020 election were saying.
Wait.
And Vaush even alludes to it when he talks about people putting their thumbs on the scale. We can talk about the intel agency putting their thumb on the scale, the 2020 election, other things like that. Government institutions that were putting their thumb on the scale. I understand that's off topic.
I thought it was like on his Facebook.
But the point is this: like, I don't understand if it's Amazon's company, barring that they did anything illegal, even if they were heavily telling their people not to unionize, why that's not their right to do so. Also, I think that it's naive to think that these people didn't have access to the internet and tons of arguments and tons of information that are pro-union places. So to just assume the naivety of the people that voted for this and say they only made this decision through propaganda, I think that that's tenuous.
This is silly on a number of levels. First and foremost, the reason why we scoff at the election meddling claims with regards to the national election is because Trump's campaign team consistently embarrassed themselves dozens of times over every time they were asked to prove it. Whereas the evidence right now that there was a thumb on the scale with the Amazon election seems a lot more direct and compelling. Additionally, the idea that people aren't influenced by propaganda, what you're essentially saying is, how can people be influenced by propaganda when they have an internet connection? If that was the case, the entire field of advertising wouldn't exist. I think that's a ridiculous concern. These companies
nor would Rob's channel either.
Oh, true. Yeah, exactly. Why would how could I supply any info to my audience? We all have access to an internet connection. No, people get info.
Now, DemonMama, you may be a little too close to Mr. McBurns to say this, but the reason that Rob has much of a channel at all is kind of created out of Dylan's need to fill a conservative slot. Same thing with CTV. These aren't like actual like creators that are succeeding on their own. They're like people that are finding a niche, being like Dylan's, heels and fucking jobbers.
From where they get info, and not everyone spends hours typing up research on union relationship to proportion of wages earned by workers. Ultimately, companies like Amazon have spent billions convincing people that unions.
How is his voice so relaxing? Damn.
Don't work. Now, they wouldn't be putting that money.
Vaush, seriously, if you're listening, have you got any books on tape? You should unironically read theory and make books on tape. I would listen if it was like Vaush. If it was Vaush saying, because I'm an anarchitty and I can't read, Vaush, I need you to do books on tape for me with your voice, because it's very soothing for some reason.
And if they weren't getting a return on it, I imagine they're getting a pretty good return at that.
No idea why.
Well, and it's not just a matter of just propaganda either. We're talking about, I'm not kidding you. You can get video footage of the Amazon the Amazon influence. By the way, and this is a matter of FOIA, which is currently being fully investigated. And there's been, I think, 3 very serious journalists who've signed off on this so far. One of them from Vice, one of them from The Intercept, and then a third from a admittedly biased union source who was making the original allegations and are now being investigated. But in these videos, you can literally see where Amazon had the voting or the ballot box placed underneath their security cameras. So it's not just a matter of propaganda. We're talking about active and constant pressure from the employers. This is what we call intimidation.
A car rant guy,
and in fact, there has been multiple reports from the employees at that site saying that their managers were heckling them constantly to make sure that they voted.
So Rob is like a car rant guy, if I'm not mistaken, right, chat? He's just a fucking, he's not even like Minnesota Mike. Like Minnesota Mike has got 100,000 or more subs. Dude, Dylan, could you try to get a hold of Minnesota Mike? Do you need a conservative? Get a hold of fucking weird ass Minnesota Mike, and he can bitch about communist invading radicals to you too, Dylan. You can share in my exquisite pain of knowing who the fuck Minnesota Mike is. All you have to do is get off your ass and call him instead of fucking building a career. Raid? Who said you could raid? Oh my god, are we getting raided? Is there some kind of raid going on? It's a drippings raid. It's little raid drippings. Thank you so much, Aringar the Rad. Thank you so much, We're Right. Thank you both for the follows. Wait, can I just not see the raid? Oh, there it is. There it is. Right, there's the raid. Oh my god, my notifications are all screwed up. I can't even read that. Okay, thank you so much, DemonMama. Thank you. Thank you for filling my pool of gators with little dudes and little people that would rather not be called dudes, because that's valid too. Not everybody likes being called dude. Oh my god, what's going on? A second raid. Wow, thank you, odd number. Thank you, odd number.
But the little dudes come up, and like I just naturally am like little dudes.
Thank you, KC Chaos. Thank you for the follow.
And like I just naturally am like little dudes.
Little imps. Yeah, dudes and non-dudes.
But the little dudes come up, and like I just naturally am like little dudes.
Imp raid, imp raid. Oh my god, all kinds of kappa. All kinds of kappa. Jed, and oh my god, I love the little... It's colorful. Anyway, chat, we're having a really interesting one. Okay, so here's the story. Now, I started to listen to this debate because I usually pre-listen to debates, you know, just to kind of like know what like I'm gonna be responding to and stuff like that. I do a little bit of research. This time I started to, and I just got kind of pissed. Like, there was a lot about, like, what Rob was saying, I think, early on that was, like, pissing me off. And so I was like, you know what? What's going to be better? Thank you, Seven Donkeys. Thank you, Ella Kval.
The little dudes come up, and, like, I just naturally...
I'm like, little dudes. Thank you, Spunky B. So anyway, like, I'm in my Discord, like, watching, you know, this debate, and I just, like, kind of, like, I couldn't take it anymore. I like went and listened to some music, and then like I ended up coming back and listening to what my Discord was saying about the debate, and I kind of got it through those eyes. I kind of got it through the eyes of other people, and it's almost like I read the clip notes to this debate. You know what I mean? Like I was like just kind of like, oh my god, hello, Silent. Yes, much love to you too. Much love, imps. Absolutely, love to have you here. It's really awesome, and I do believe that the title reflects the fact that I am very much of the opinion that DemonMama should have been the winner tonight. I don't know. It was a little bit of a weird thing that happened, but at the same time, I'm trying not to prejudge too much, even though like people in my Discord were definitely like upset about like some of the things that were said. Some of the things that were said in the chat and some of the things that were said by some of the conservative guests on this panel. So we'll see what's up with that. But thank you so much, DemonMama. And everybody who's not already, if you don't know that DemonMama is also streaming on Twitch these days, in addition to her lovely YouTube channel, go follow her on both of those places. And if you notice on the screen, there's a little link above DemonMama's head. It says www.demonmama.com/live. So if you go to that link, that is kind of where her stream lives. And you can go make an account and hang out over there. And it is a very, very chill place.
With a very strong nudge in the direction which they were supposed to vote. This is a very dirty situation that goes so far to the, and by the way, this was a story that broke before. This has already been verified. But Amazon pressured the local town to remove a stoplight outside of their facility because the union organizers were handing out pamphlets at that stoplight while cars were stopped. And they literally pressured the town, threatened to close up shop and deprive the town of any tax revenue in order to stop union organizers from getting pamphlets out. To me, that sounds like a company that's willing to threaten its own workers in order to get what it wants. And I don't blame those workers for saying, listen.
Yeah, I'm with you, Cookies. I think there was something funny here. I smell nepotism. I smell nepotism, like not family nepotism, but like friend Is that a thing, chat? Is it still called nepotism if it's your friend?
Like
if it's your friend, if you like to invite your friends on a debate where you make somebody else like fight off like 10 fighters, and then you just like invite your buddies over to like
dudes come up and like
is that the same?
Like little dudes.
I can't gamble.
I kid, Dylan. I kid because I love.
I need to feed my family.
We love chat. We love
aside with the company here because it's not worth risking a vote on, and that sucks. But that's terror. That's how this stuff works. That's how you impress
on one another. All right. So just to respond to what Vaush said there. So again, he says that's because Trump's team was laughed out. Like, I'm not talking about the claims that vote tallies were switched or Dominion did this or that. Whatever. I've never really been on board with those arguments. But we could clearly see that there were agencies within the government that put their thumb on the scale, such as the intel agencies. In fact, we had 50 intel officials that supported the censorship of a story critical of Biden and his son by the.
Rob sticks to the script right up to the end, regardless of any facts or figures, and getting pointed out to him.
The New York Post, which we
gay fash. Unironically, yes, I believe you are correct. It is unironically, conservative affirmative action, and like it would be fine. I don't know, dude. I mean, like, look. Running a panel, it's not easy. There's a lot of things that people don't understand, and they have expectations that you're going to be like clairvoyant in the middle of the panel, and that if somebody's not talking enough, you're going to be able to get them in. You can't necessarily do that. There's some real challenges to being a panel host, right? And I don't want to minimize that, but at the same time, yeah, no, this was essentially it's because Dylan needs conservatives to kind of be there every week, and the MAGA kind of conservatives or the suspect Sush kind of conservatives, they tend to blow up. They tend to have an expiration date, let's just say, right? So he's looking for somebody that can come back week after week. And hey, if you ignore the fact that CTV compares trans people to genetic mutant dinosaurs, that the whole point of the book that they're in is that they should have never been created, then you can have CTV back every week, right? But you just have to pretend no, but he's telling his charming, whacking stories about dinosaurs. He's being eccentric. He's wacky. We can laugh at him. It's okay. We can laugh. That's what he's there for. He's the fucking stooge wrestler that just trips over his shoelaces constantly and makes us all laugh, right? But it's there's something a little not funny about Chudosaurus Rex. There's something a little bit not funny about Chudosaurus Rex.
Now, no, it's true. We saw that. Sure, I would love to go down that road. We don't have to in this debate, but I would love to go down that road. The point is that it was clear that the intel agencies, places like the EPA, places like the IRS, places like the Defense Department or the State Department, were all putting their thumb on the scale. I give you a chance to talk. You'll have every chance to respond. You'll have every chance to respond when you're done. You'll have every chance to respond when I'm done. So the point is, in addition to that, we also see major corporations, Amazon being one of them, that put their thumb on the scale to advocate for the Democratic Party and Joe Biden. In fact, we see a near monopoly of the control.
This was the first debate that made you so upset that you actually cried. Oh my God. Honestly, next Hippie Dippy. Yeah, there were a lot of people reacting like that in my Discord. Honestly, the next Hippie Dippy championship, I would love to see Vaush go up against 10 conservatives. Just an absolute gangbang. Wow. I mean, is somebody going to do the fan art of that one too? Would we have somebody do the fan art? Okay, Counterpoints is one of very few conservatives I've seen who I may not like, but at least it's isn't a total fucking dick on panel and violates TOS and decorum frequently. Like, yeah, counterpoints is okay. Look, counterpoints is a little bit cringe, I'll be honest with you, but like, yeah, no, he seems to be like, this is gonna make my fucking chat cringe, but I think he's a good guy. I just think he's really kind of attached at the hip to cultural conservatism, and I think it gets in the way of any, you know, desire he might have to be like a comrade, right? Even though that might be president, it's that, like, that fucking, you know, cultural conservatism, like, basically keeps him from really doing, you know, what's right by
of information online and social media that all went in one direction, favoring pushing the narrative for one side over the other. So it's good to get an agreement from all of you that those sort of things have consequences. So it's interesting that you have a problem with it when it comes to one union vote in one company, but I'm guessing neither of you had a problem with that massive corporate influence controlling the flow of information.
He's a nice guy. Are you laughing at me? Do you think I got suckered?
So Rap God Rob over here, Rob over here just fucking rattled off a fuckload of claims about the EPA, the CIA, the FBI, everybody, the aliens, everybody's in on the conspiracy to make Biden win, right? With no fucking evidence, not a single drop of evidence. So I just find that really ridiculous. Well, and it's not a serious part of this conversation because we have evidence and you don't. You don't have
additionally,
anything. You're just making
it's important to point out that the reason why these claims are kept so deliberately vague is because Trump supporters always have this general idea that the entirety of the media is out to get them.
No way, that guy is
like
a crypto.
the government, everything, every institution except for Trump, which is funny because Trump's campaign was actively using his power as the president to influence election results long before the actual votes started being counted. Trump was doing everything in his power to lie and misrepresent as much as possible to try to slant everything in his favor, up to the point where the RNC was actually held at the White House, using the power of the presidency as a campaign tool for his upcoming term. So again, like this vagueness doesn't fly here. If you could find evidence of like a sustained propaganda disinfo campaign from the Democratic Party, that would go, but you can't because they didn't do it.
Okay, sure. Like, for example, I give you off the top of my head, we had an inspector general that found 17 times the FBI lied or had omissions in order to spy on Trump's campaign.
Yeah, and he also
did so using paid opposition research from Hillary Clinton.
Like, what's the story? He was involved in the death of somebody that, like, during some of his police work, right?
That used as the central person responsible for that, a known Russian spy that they covered up for. That IG also said that an FBI lawyer actually changed the results of an email that asked whether or not Carter Page, a campaign associate of Trump, that they used the two-hop role that Bill Benny talks about to spy on Trump's campaign.
Still talking
whether
about
or not,
and why were no charges
I mean,
filed?
you asked for specific.
Wait, then why were no charges filed?
Because they were.
See Mama is playing the lefty heel. Remember, y'all, this is pro wrestling. It's not real. That's a good point. There's like, this is somewhat unreal. Like, understand Dylan Burns and what he's doing. He's trying to package debate in the form of pro wrestling, while still somehow maintaining some sort of, I don't know, chat. It's just odd. It's just odd. Like, yeah.
Well, we say this.
He was charged.
The Democratic Party did it. Okay,
no, he was.
So with a conviction?
Conservatives are all gatekeeping and gaslighting, but no girl boss.
Yeah, they gave him a slap on the wrist, but yes.
Yo, this chat gets fucking salty about DemonMama. This is so ridiculous. The shit that they say about DemonMama in chat is so over the top and just like, and they're such fucking snowflakes. This is what I can't stand about people. Like, the DemonMama derangement syndrome is real, okay? It is fucking real. And you see it in, like, crowds like this, like Dylan Burns' audience, right? You know, this thing where they just cannot handle, like, she'll do the same fucking shit as any other debater. She'll do the same fucking shit. Like, she doesn't back down and she's uncompromising and she's tough. And somehow they see that as her being unhinged or some shit. Like, I don't know, whatever they're saying in chat and stuff like that. It's just like, they have a double standard depending on, like, you know, who the debate lord is in question, right? And it's really unfair. We've seen it before with the way that Destiny characterizes DemonMama, and it's definitely in play tonight in the Dylan Burns chat, unfortunately.
Dudes come up and, like, I just naturally am like, little dude.
He was convicted.
Okay.
This lawyer. Okay. And secondly, he was convicted of falsifying evidence. The lawyer was.
It's merely.
Look it up. I used to have his name memorized, but
yeah, I can't remember what was the count of the the post-election
big trans misogyny.
The post-election cases. Was it like 60 cases that Trump
lost, it was like
with no evidence?
So.
And now the primary representative, who, by the way, I remember because I've been in this scene fucking debating you people for a long time. I know that you all were clapping for Sidney Powell back in the day when Sidney Powell is now saying that Sidney Powell is now standing up here going, "Oh, it was just joking. It was just a joke."
Hey, anyways, Kevin Kleinsmith was the name of the lawyer. Kevin Kleinsmith was the name of the lawyer that was charged and pled guilty to falsifying documents. In addition to that, the Inspector General said the most shocking thing that he saw was that the actual Russian.
Hey, Ivy Wevins, whose head is empty? Whose head is empty? No, I'm talking to you. Who are you saying that to? Rob's head. Oh, geez. Maybe be clear about that. Okay, I didn't know if you were like saying it to me or somebody else in chat. I'm just like, wait a minute, did I miss that? What are we talking about? Okay, Rob's head is empty. Yeah, I don't know. There might be a few rocks in there.
Subsource that made up all of these claims. When the FBI finally, after getting the warrant to the FISA warrant twice, when they finally talked to the primary subsource laughed and was like, "This was all just jokes over beers. I can't believe you're using that to spy on a president of the United States," which actually happened.
About?
We saw.
Quick
you
question.
asked for evidence.
Chat. Real quick question. For the people in chat, does anybody know what this?
Did you see? He sets it up like, you know, this is. Oh my god,
the little dudes come up and like I just
he starts talking like he starts with disavowing some of the like most wild stop the steal type shit, but now he's onto this. Now he's onto this fucking theory that Donald Trump was unduly spied on, because guess what? Donald Trump is a shady motherfucker. He runs a shady campaign, and it was so shady that the FBI had to look into it to be like, what the fuck is actually going on here? Now, I don't know what the fuck they found. Those investigations, I think some of them, well, no. Anyway, regardless of that, you know, they looked into him because he was sus. That's why they looked into him. No other reason. It wasn't Obama saying, "Hey, FBI, could you bug my like fucking like the person that's running in the Republican?" You know, no. This is a load of shit, and Rob is just pulling out the bullshit tonight, just like some fucking old K-Kona pulling out a like a tin full of dead worms from the back of their fucking truck. You know what I'm saying? That they forgot to go fishing with. Yeah. Stinking ass worm juice. That is what Rob is selling tonight, okay?
This guy's fucking talking about right now, because I feel like we've spun off into some weird conspiracy theory nonsense, and it doesn't make any sense.
I gotta ask a question real quick.
Sure, go for it.
I'm sitting here, I'm listening to all of y'all talk, because again, I'm not very well versed on the whole unionization thing. The only experiences that I have, though, is when I saw at the hands of the VA that were federal protected employees that essentially were protected from being fired from the hospital because they, as I just stated, and the quality of work was so subpar that there were literally veterans like laying on the floors being looked over, because according to one actual secretary I spoke with, she was only required to make 25 appointments a day. And after that, she could literally still get paid, sit at the desk, and do virtually nothing. That's what she was required to do. And they couldn't touch her. They couldn't fire her. Now, I'm not saying unions are inherently bad or inherently good. But my question is, how do you curb that lack of, I want to say, ambition, care for their work? Because it did exist. I've been there many times. And that's a sincere problem. And the other thing that I wanted to point out, though, is Vaush's point as far as
people in chat were crapping on DemonMama because they wouldn't tolerate a trans woman asserting herself. Absolutely. Canadian brunch. Absolutely. The whole right-wing political platform is huffing bourgeois farts. Yeah, that. Thank you, Roy. Roxoy? Roxoy. Roxui. Thank you, Roxui. I think that's how you pronounce that name.
Propaganda. And I'm not saying propaganda doesn't work. I think both sides employ this. I mean, my God, all of the 2020, 2016, there's propaganda left and right. The MSM.
Did I say your name correctly though? Because like usually I don't, but don't worry, because it's actually a mark of distinction. If I mispronounce your name, that's like you're in. That's like, you know what I mean? It's like a thing. It's a thing here.
I can't sit there and say I'm a Trump supporter. I'm not a Trump hater. I'm a constitutionalist. I take it case by case. But I think the generalizations that I've seen almost everyone in this room make so far, I think it's kind of like, it's not really fair, because I like Trump over Biden. There are things I don't agree with Trump on, but to be painted as like this one person that's all or nothing, or saying like the MSM is out to get me or the government's out to get me, I think there is some validity to that.
Let's take a look at his shirt.
Also, the one thing I'm noticing is that
oh my God, steak and whiskey 220.
in regards to the whole Trump issue, I feel like we're kind of going off topic on this, but I hate to say this, but
wait, why does it say I'm going on an adventure? He's got like a pirate thing. He's got a weird pirate thing painted on his wall, and it says I'm going on an adventure. Oh my god.
I think Pence did the right thing. He upheld the Constitution. I even agree with Crenshaw on it.
You sound pained. You sound fucking pained to say that, dude. Like, you sound like you're really, like, wrenching yourself. Like, I don't know. I wonder if the fucking riot had gone another way and they'd actually tied up fucking Congress and, like, held him ransomed and extracted some sort of demand. Like, would he be saying that? Or would he be right with the Keikonas, celebrating?
Evidence.
I don't trust this guy, dude. This guy's sus.
I'm still waiting to see it myself.
This guy is sus.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I'm open to have my mind changed. I gotta respect the rules.
Dylan, I gotta respect. Like, I gotta say, your friends are fucking sus.
The rules, and it's very hard for me to say that because my following, they're gonna eat me alive for this.
This dude is sus.
But if I can actually see the evidence, the hardcore evidence, I'll believe it. But in the meantime, Trump took an L.
And it hurts you so bad to say that, doesn't it? It fucking hurt. Anyway, I won't rub it in anymore. I won't rub it in, John. I'm not as mean as CTV would have you believe, right? I'm only mean to him because he just kind of deserves it.
Damn. How to even respond to this? This is like,
yeah, I know.
Massive.
Well, you can start by not being so condescending. I'd appreciate.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I feel like
accusing people off the bat.
I can't really help
it.
You know, I was talking. I know you're getting.
Well, you certainly didn't have a problem interrupting Rob for like the 30 seconds he tried talking.
But that's because Rob is rattling off a whole bunch of lies, and you're just like filling empty space. Listen, it's hard for me to not be.
Now we're gonna start insulting. Is that how this is gonna go? No, I just don't appreciate being talked down to like you just did to Rob and myself. When I've been respectful.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Let me make a quick apology. It would be a lot easier for me to not talk down to you if either of you knew a single thing about the topic that you came here to argue about. You came here to fucking challenge for the belt, and you didn't even do the basic homework. It would have taken you 10 minutes to read about it.
Look, if you look back in our archives of Bird Brains, you'll see that Dylan Burns actually, unfortunately, owns the rights to Bird Brains. Okay, so I'm a little bit like, you know, compromised by that fact that like technically I sold him the rights to Bird Brains when I didn't think it was going to go anywhere. So, you know, we're a little bit compromised, but yeah, like, so I'm kind of like not like contractually obliged, unfortunately, not to say the D word unless like I defeat Dylan Burns in a one-on-one debate about platforming responsibly. Clip it and ship it.
I came here as a favor.
Dylan should have put the topics out earlier. It's not my fault.
I'm sorry. I came here
against Dylan. Yeah, blame the host. Blame the host.
Dylan, if that's true.
You're very emotional.
I mean, I know the rest of my class. My Discord didn't like this. They thought that Dylan wearing a robe while everybody else had to wear actual clothes, that was belying of arrogance. But I've got to say that Mr. McBurns is looking snazzy in his Kamashita robe here.
Wait, please.
Give me a second here.
John Burke.
Wait. Okay.
Oh, Discord?
So let me be clear. This is breaking news, and everybody was talking about it.
Hey, I agree.
So I don't think people can judge somebody too much for not having all the data on this specific topic.
I agree. I don't know if I like the fabric of his, though. I don't know how soft that, like, is it fuzzy or is it soft? Because I like the soft one that's like a little bit fuzzy, but mostly just soft, you know? Where it's like...
I just do want to... I am going to throw myself in there and say
that's
that.
Very...
Okay, wait. I just have to say something. Okay,
this is intentional?
So, John Burke. Sure. I think your point is well taken that there are instances where unions can protect workers from malfeasance or from, I think, legitimate penalties to their behavior. I mean, I think one of the easiest examples of this would be police unions. Now, lefties tend to like, you know, they say every union but police unions. And while principally I understand that there are elements of police unions that are both valued and arguably necessary for the operation of their force, I could imagine, for example, a world where police had no protections whatsoever, and that led to them being excessively cautious, unwilling to respond to calls because they don't want to be... Yeah, I understand that there could be back-end consequences to that.
Like
I think a lot of lefties are generally critical of police unions because it seems like they have a lot of power to the point where they do the boys club in-group protection stuff quite a bit. I don't think that's typical of most
I can't believe those fuckers had the gall to accuse DemonMama of talking down to them when every single word out of their mouth was condescending, was more condescending than that. Oh my god, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Look, is DemonMama a perfect person? No. Are any of us perfect people? No. Does she claim to be a perfect person? No. Okay? But the things you can't point to me that there's something that she does that's not done by every other debate lord out there, probably more so, right? And she gets called on it on like a much like lower level, you know what I mean? She can't even like raise her voice slightly, and like half of these dudes like fucking yell at you, fucking swallow the mic, you know, and just they fucking deep throat the mic and just like boom over you. It's
because it was so peaceful up here, but now there are freaking communist invading radicals.
Oh, thank you for the subby, Axe Daddy. Yeah, no, it's just like it's a complete double standard, and I feel like she's in a double bind too, because you know I know from experience that if you don't come across not just as you know aggressive, but aggressive in the debate lord sense, right? You know, like the big kind of you know, kind of puffing your chest, like they don't even get my type of like attack, which is to kind of go underneath and just like little slights and stuff and do it with a smile and just everything is all cheery. But if you actually listen to like what I'm saying to CTV, it's savage. But like, yeah, they don't get that. They like it's a little too complicated for their male brain patterns to really deconstruct, so it just goes right over their heads.
Groups. It is possible that elements of this rise up in unions that have a more conventional organizational strategy, like, I don't know, grocers union. But generally speaking, at this point in time, while that remains a risk, I feel as though workers have...
We got any union members in chat?
...so little bargaining power that we're concerned about giving too much power to like the ants beneath our feet almost. Because we know people in corporations get away with an unbelievable amount of stuff with virtually no oversight. And
thank you for the follow, Jace.
And they can get away with mistreating their workers because workers, I mean, they can just leave if they don't like it. The economy's kind of geared that way. So right now, I think what we should do is we should focus on bolstering unions, workers' rights. And if things dial up too hard in that respect, then we can get a little critical, maybe a little bit more...
yeah, like if they start, you know, doing mafia tactics and taking over shit and like, you know, like everything turns into like The Godfather, then we can start to say something. But that, no, just...
Skeptical of the influences these unions are having.
That is actually a you know, like a sort of trope that they use to attack unions.
I like how you put that. I like how you put that.
I'll just say real.
Thank you.
And I'll just say real quick, like just to finish up on this point where you're talking.
Unionize Amazon, hell yeah, Small Forest, hell yeah.
This will be about the election, but you asked for specific evidence. I gave it. You couldn't handle the evidence of the FBI putting their thumb on the scale. Just saying, it's clear that you seem to have a problem with people inside the agencies putting their thumbs on the scale. That happened. Now, on this case specifically with these unions, so just doing some. Don't act like we don't know what we're talking about because I don't know the specifics. I'm sure if we start to get into the very specifics of exactly everything that happened in the vote, no one has a total knowledge of it. But I will say this:
unionized literally everywhere.
This was for Bessemer, Alabama, is where the plant was, where they sought to unionize. I believe there was about 3,000 votes, and they lost 2-1. They've rejected the union. Now, I did a little bit of research. They start out at $15 an hour in this plant. That would make them about making $30,000 a year. If you look at the average annual income in Bessemer, Alabama, it's $16,716. So the members of this workforce in Amazon are making
very trans-misogynistic chat and the panel, though, especially Dylan. Oh my god, yeah, I was like, what the fuck was up with Dylan's chat? I kept on hearing like the most vile shit come out of there. I almost went into that chat and just like, you know, went like throws chair, like, you know, like throws chair to DemonMama. Like I was just like, listen, girl, go dirty, go fucking dirty, because this isn't right, you know.
Making almost double what the average person in Bessemer, Alabama makes. So there is a significant chance that they said, listen, this is a pretty good job for the area. We think that bringing in a union could actually cause dues and maybe won't help us financially. And it might cause people to lose jobs and things like that. So why risk what we see as a good thing right now?
I'm giving you a timeout.
Okay,
Spunky,
with what I see
just understand, nothing personal. You didn't do anything wrong. I just like people. There are people that like search shit like that. You know what I mean? And like they already hate my guts. Do you know about this? Do you know about how, like, not all of them, but like there's I got a small pool of haters over there. I got a little fan club over there on the Destiny sub, so I am not trying to get them over here. They are fucking shitheads to deal with. They come in, get banned on purpose, and then try to claim that they got banned over some great like principle they wanted to uphold of free speech, and that I'm, you know, a piece of shit for banning them for that. Like it's just, it's so sick. They fucking start drama threads over there, and they actually pick up. Like you'd think like Vaush's sub was smart enough to just tell him to fuck off, but like for some reason they put it on our Destiny, and it gets like fucking 120 upvotes. Like holy shit, chat, holy shit.
In this country, I do share that.
No, I am not one of, yeah. So no, you didn't do it. Yo, you're not bad, Spunky. You're good. You're good.
Doesn't mean that a union is correct.
I'm just super fucking paranoid after this last 2 weeks. It's been so fucked up. There's been so much harassment, so much hate. I call it hate boner gate.
Every situation. I'm not opposed.
It really feels like that. It really feels like some simps with a weird hate, some sort of weird hate mob. That's what I was trying to say.
The unions, despite what DemonMama said in their opening, I'm saying that there could be specific situations. I'm for giving people the choice to vote for a union or not. I understand that there will be propaganda from the people that own the company to not want a union. And
Yo, do you think he controls their flying monkeys or something? Do you think like that do you think he sends out orders or something like that? Like there's a bunch of like, and it's not all of them. There's some of them are decent at least, right? But yeah, it just like it's really easy to get a anti-fandom over there as a female creator, right? You know, and you know, like, right, I'm not trying to cast aspersions on the group or paint with too broad of a brush, because it is a big group. And what they'll try to do, though, is that if there's a small mob that's against you, they'll try to increase their size by characterizing everything you say as being anti-DGG, anti-Destiny, anti-the sub. And it's just like, yeah, there's unironically people who are just like going around like protecting the reputation of the sub. And so, you know, I'm really not trying to call out more people than my already growing small pool of Gators. But guess what, Gators? You actually gave me partner on YouTube earlier than I would have gotten it, right? Because you started your hate thread and you might have taken away some subs on YouTube, but guess what? The anti-cancellation thread ran its course and it put back those subs and more, and actually grew way faster, you know, during this week when I was under attack, because people actually aren't going to let you get away with bullshit like that. The more you fucking try to cancel me, you little shrimps, the more you little shrimps try to cancel me, the larger that I get. So, you know, keep it up. Keep it fucking up. I love it. I fucking love it.
I understand that propaganda can have a serious influence, and if they broke the law, there's something that should be looked into. We'll see if that happens. But having said that, there are good reasons to reject unions.
Yeah, it's against the rules.
Some anecdotal stories around here.
It's against the rules to cancel.
We actually have evidence of terrible unions in the nation if we go that direction.
Well, the concern that I have about that mainly is that there are unionized warehouses in that area of the country that are making considerably more, $20, $21, $22 an hour. And additionally, one of the big concerns with Amazon workers is not just their wages, it's their rights. Amazon workers tend to get treated pretty poorly. They're cut to the line on incredibly narrow margins with very, very high quotas. They're held to extremely high standards of performance. And if they fail, if they can't keep it up, then they just get dropped. So a union could go a long way towards helping them with that.
I'm not making any characteristics about anybody's community, okay?
It's really just a matter of, do we believe that unions will do what we know they will do? And I think a lot of the workers in Alabama probably don't. I think a lot of people have forgotten how much unions were responsible for the high standards of...
I'm sorry, I said your name. I just wanted to ask you a question, though. I'm not being kind.
Yeah, I see you two people that downvoted on the subreddit. I appreciate the fuck out of you, okay?
Understanding. I'm genuinely curious. You sound very well educated on this.
You can condescend.
My question is, do what?
Yeah, go ahead.
You can condescend.
Go ahead and condescend, but you're gonna wake up with like, you know, and Vaush is gonna have all the coconuts, and you're not gonna feel so condescending anymore. Oh my god, why did I say that?
No.
Weird. Okay,
that's not my style.
That's my pass for the.
What's wrong with me?
No, I'm
What's
genuinely
wrong with
curious
me?
though, because
Oh
I
my
believe in a free
God.
market, and
Why did
I don't believe that we actually have capitalism in America. I'm a capitalist. But I don't believe we have capitalism. I believe we have corporatism. I believe we have so much influence and interventionism in the hands of the government that is empowering the rich to become even richer. So based upon what you just said, Amazon with the strict guidelines they have, how they treat their workers, which again are protected by labor laws.
I see two.
It would concern me that
I see two guys in like my headcanon just. You know,
by empowering the workers, it almost sounds again as if it's kind of like this idea of. I'm trying to think how to actually explain this.
Well,
lovely
while
bunch
you
of
think on
coconuts.
that, I would like to touch on a couple of things.
Oh my
which
God.
is first off, the industry average for that type of work.
Good point.
In that in the warehouse for warehouse work is $19 an hour. So even though the pay at the Amazon warehouse is higher than the total average of every job.
Are we talking about Shadosaurus Rex?
It's not for the industry. It's actually quite a bit lower for the industry. In addition, one of the biggest problems with that Amazon workers have had working for Amazon is that they're constantly surveilled. Most of what they have to do, it has to be, they literally have to carry a phone around with them and press every time they complete a job. This is notoriously bad. This is what's led to stuff like the infamous pee bottles and poop bags, which is because they're monitored so tightly that they literally cannot stop to do anything else, or else their pay will be docked, or they will have a flag go up where they will be hassled by a manager. It's
version
really, really
of
bad.
the poop sock meme. It's like
exactly, precisely. You're right onto it. And like so this is a huge problem. Also, to make a small fact correction to what Rob was saying, the initial union push brought in 3,000 people who were willing to sign up to organize.
She should have won.
That's a lot of people. That's more than the amount of final votes that they got in the end. Now, the initial union push came before 3 weeks of
Chat, do you promise you won't cancel me for wearing 2 sets of cat ears? Like, I don't know.
Amazon propaganda.
I think I saw that on one of the choose your moderator memes.
Which, by the way, Amazon was ordered by the government to stop doing because it was so ridiculous. They were having 1 to 2 meetings of anti-union propaganda that were mandatory. They were making their employees come into work early to go to these meetings, or else you lose your job. Yeah, that's pretty bad. The government already had to intervene here. So they were not just, again, they weren't just putting their hand on the scales. We're talking about just a massive, massive intrusion on workers' rights.
And they're doing this here in California too. I mean, we just had a bill that basically got passed to circumvent them having to treat their independent contractors as actual workers and give them actual benefits and treat them, you know, a little bit better, right? They got out of it by, in part, you know, gaslighting their workers that this was gonna like that if they didn't vote for this shit, you know, they were gonna be the ones hurt, right? When it's really like they would have been helped, right? They're really good at this. I think they gave away, like, if you got in a Uber, if I'm not mistaken, or a Lyft, I don't know, maybe it was just one or not the other, but whatever. Sometimes they were handing out pamphlets about vote, you know, telling them how to vote. 2 sets of cat ears at once? I know, right? Right? 2 sets of cat ears at once. Yeah. The other thing is that I'm constantly eating rice cakes as a moderator, and I goes away for break, or takes extra long break, comes back more stoned. Is she doing Tai Chi and like cute hoodie or something? I don't know.
And as it turns out, in a lot of places in America, we don't really have great labor laws anymore. So laborers really get the short end of the stick in all this. This is why unions are important. Yeah.
And I'll say, I would like to see your data on that.
Wait, when I hear the short end of the stick, it makes me think about the long arm of the law. Are they like married? The short end of the stick and the long arm of the law, in terms of like fucking cliches. Are they like married? Can cliches get married? I feel like cliches should be able to get married.
Admittedly, just a quick Google search because it's not something that I'd ever looked into. But the source I found said that the average salary for a warehouse worker is $34,930.
You ship it? Yeah.
I put that in the chat. That comes down to a little more than $16 an hour. Now understand that's the average. We're talking about Amazon. The base level entry is $15 an hour. So I'm guessing at this particular plant, the average is going to be more than $15 an hour. Because
that was on. That was a few weeks ago.
So when it comes to the actual salary, they're making right in line with basically what we would expect warehouse workers to make. And it's particular in a place where the cost of living is so much lower in a place like Bessemer, Alabama, where they're making twice as much as what the average person there is working. I could see reasonably people saying,
you know, the cost of living is lower. It seems like you're making a lot of assumptions. You assume they're getting raises. You assume their cost of living is lower. But what actually is the cost of living?
Well, I assume real quick. I would assume the cost of living is lower because the average salary is so much lower, and there's not people just that are completely destitute in Bessemer, Alabama. It doesn't look like a place where there's just hundreds of thousands of people on the street. So if the average salary there is $16,000 and someone's making $34,000, I would say that it's a reasonable suggestion that the cost of living in somewhere like Bessemer is lower than the cost of living in someone like LA, Chicago, Detroit, or an area like that.
Yeah, but you're choosing the most extreme option.
We also have to keep in mind unions aren't just a press button increase wages thing. They're really about democracy, the ability for workers to even argue or contend or bargain for their salaries. So it could well be that a union could organize there and they could meet with management and they could hammer out something that doesn't necessarily increase the average wage tremendously, but it hammers out more rights or better protections for like overtime work or that sort of thing. It's not just about like, do we give workers more money? It's do we give them the power to fight on even footing with the corporations who up until this point just decide their wages. Because that's how it used to be. And back in smaller labor markets, I mean back before the modern capitalist, system that we live in today, back 50, 100, 150 years ago, because populations were lower and because businesses weren't as massive and all expanding, for some people, especially people with a certain set of skills that were useful and not super common, they could actually argue for their wages. God, I remember when I was a kid, my parents said, when you go in there, because I was walking around handing out resumes. When you go in there and they hand you a job application form, you tell them you want, and I think it was like $12 an hour, because that was a lot, back when I don't have the right hair for 2016. You say that, but of course, you don't get that. Maybe nobody actually argues for their wages, unless we're talking a lawyer or somebody with a very, very high skill set. We're talking about you go on in there and you take the minimum wage. And that's how it's been for decades for millions of people. And unions are the antidote to that. The ability to actually do what my boomer parents told me I should be able to do. Argue for your wage.
Okay, but I don't disagree.
One more thing I want to just bring up. Hold on, just one more thing that is off of what you were saying, Rob. Just so you know, I just had to do a quick fact check on this. The Bessemer location opened in March of 2020. So yeah, there's not any workers there that have been working there for years and have gotten pay raises. Also, it should be noted for everyone who's watching this, the federal poverty line is at $24,500. So when you hear a term like, oh, $30,000, whoa, that's so much. That is, Rob, attempting to sort of play at so we can your ignorance of the state of American poverty.
It's not.
It is.
If I could,
very close to the poverty line.
So if I could explain, I'll talk a little about my life. I make about $15 an hour.
Oh my
God,
I make
Tifa's rad. A year. You know what my rent was when I lived here in my little area in Clarion County, Pennsylvania?
That's probably true. If I wasn't a sorceress, though.
There were mom and pop stores here that if you increase a federal minimum wage to $15 would literally go out of business because they're literally not making any money. They're just making enough to operate, and they're paying people like $8, $9 if you hear like people can live off that in this area because things are so much cheaper. So I understand if you don't live in an area like this, why you would think the cost of living is universal.
It feels nice.
But listen, you're trying to say
no. Listen, Americans don't live like that. You're just pulling on an anecdote from your own life. That's not how most Americans live.
Like we could have a discussion. Thank you for not interrupting every 3 seconds.
I'm very sorry. The spice is too high for you.
So anyway, so
give a second. Right.
So anyways, to continue on this.
Bessemer's poverty rate is actually 28.1%. That's insane. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So, can we have a second here?
Hey, you don't shut up, Vaush.
DemonMama, you wanted to talk after Rob, I assume?
Oh.
Okay.
Wow.
So, Rob, I
wanted to hear John Burke's thing, too. I'm sorry.
Okay, John Burke.
John go before me. He's talked least, so that's cool.
Okay, John, were you talking before?
Went from 865 to 1300. Oh my god.
Okay.
Just
John,
now?
you go first, then we'll go to
like
Rob.
Over a month?
DemonMama.
Yeah, West Coast Chanel, that's crazy.
Just to go back up to what Vaush was saying, you talk about negotiating salaries for employees and things such as that. I'm a small business owner myself.
Wouldn't have any
when somebody applies for a job, to empower employees to essentially negotiate their salaries, or to empower them to the ability to do that, I don't think that's just like we set that there and that's just going to be they have that option. I think naturally they probably would do that. Who wouldn't want to try and negotiate for a higher salary? Well, who dictates the level of salary? Well, the business owner does, essentially, right? I would assume that. Like, they have the negotiations based upon, like, what do we feel is a good compromise in regards to what you should be paid. And I know that local economics take a major play into that as far as pay based upon where you live. But I think the biggest contributing factor is your set of skills, whether they be entry level or you be experienced, what kind of education you have that actually supports the job that you're going to do and what you bring to the table. So as a business owner myself, I don't pay my employees excuse me, minimum wage. I actually invest in them.
I like Vaush, but Vaush bad.
But I invest in them because I think a lot of people don't seem to realize that if you lose an employee, I put a lot of money into training that employee. If I lose that employee, number one, I'm taking a hit financially. I'm going to take a hit in my business because I can't afford that.
He's the bad
but number
boy.
two, it doesn't sit well with me to have the employees essentially leverage something over the business owner's head, saying that if we don't get what we want, then essentially what, we unionize? I mean, I support that. I think that's, in a sense, that's also part of free market right there. So I think, I kind of see what y'all are saying. I agree in some states. I agree in some cases. Others I don't.
Free market had
but it's very concerning to have this idea that employees should be empowered to leverage things against the business, or the business owner rather. Now you said corporation, so maybe that's what you were referring to instead. So I'm just trying to be clear on that one. Are we talking about like small business? Or are we talking about large scale corporation business?
But I've also had
it's just the problem to me is that essentially you're fighting to maintain a system where you're the only one who has the ability to dictate the wages of your employees. Well, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, you do make that decision. You pay the wages. I mean, they can't write your checks for you, but I think that it's fair for them to at least have an input. So when it comes to small businesses, I think the best kind of union isn't like a workplace union, but it's God, I'm forgetting the term. It's when you unionize everyone of a specific field in a given area. So like a city will have like, this is the grocery union, a city will have, this is the X, the Y union, sectional union, sectoral bargaining, for the whole sector. Now, if it's true that you pay your workers more than minimum, I'm sure you do, and it seems like then you take good care of your workers, and they joined a sectoral union, in all likelihood, the beefs those unions would cultivate wouldn't be with you. They'd be with the shitty business owners who do everything they can to skinflint the people who work for them.
And could you guarantee that? And because but could you guarantee that though? That's the thing that concerns me though.
It's not possible to guarantee that, but I can guarantee that a lack of unions has led to a lot of workers getting exploited and a significant decrease in the average wages of the American middle class. So I can't guarantee there won't ever be issues with solution A, but I know there are big ones with solution B. And we've seen 50 years ago what the system used to look like with widespread unionization. And it seems like it was fairer. And it's not like people were getting thrown out of business back then either. The business owners were doing well too. It's just a matter of how well do you distribute those funds, how amicably.
People really like to cancel.
But I think that in the case of a sectoral union, I imagine you would be almost unaffected. It would be about the less fortunate people who work at small businesses similar to yours, who maybe aren't getting such a fair deal on their wages.
Well, then let's take, for example, a startup business. I'm sorry, I mean, I really enjoy this. So say like Rob wants to start a grocery business, say, for example. He wants to start his own little grocery store. And they created that type of union previously discussed. And he said, well, all I can afford to pay my employees right now is the minimum wage. Anything above that, I'm not going to be able to expand. I don't have the startup capital to support that. That union comes in, they say, this is what you have to do. Therefore, what is Rob left to do?
Copy pasta. Somebody unironically said that.
And if I...
and if you ask Haas...
No, well, I want your perspective on that too.
So, Vaush, I don't disagree.
If you ask Haas, I'm a white supremacist for calling him a Nazgul, which is a dog whistle for Muslim, according to Haas. Nazgul. Yeah, unironically. So yeah, I mean, it depends on who you ask, but if you ask somebody who's not a ridiculous ass clown, yeah, no, I'm pretty left-wing.
Agree with anything you're saying. Let me be quite clear, and I think John agrees with me. No one here, I think, saying unions are a bad idea. We're saying that they shouldn't be forced. I think hopefully we all agree with that. So they shouldn't be forced, but certainly you should have the option. And again, if Amazon did something illegal, we will see. I'm assuming it's going to be investigated. They should be punished if they did something illegal. I have no qualms with that. I have no love for Amazon. Don't get me wrong. And I certainly think that corporations are exploiting workers, so I don't have a problem.
Definitely a little
My point is, though, that unions aren't always a panacea. So in this circumstance with the hypothetical, I could tell you that in the town of Clarion, there was where I kind of have lived around my whole life. There was a company that my father worked for that made windows, and they decided to unionize. And at first, the union actually did a lot of good things, not really with wages like you're saying, but with kind of paid leave time, working conditions, and things like that. The problem was the union bosses that came in started to not really represent the will of the people that worked there.
Oh my God, the fucking
so they started pushing for
the tankies hate me.
Were like, So what ended up happening was they pushed for increased wages by about $4 per hour. And basically the company ownership sat down with these union bosses for like a month. And when there wasn't much budge on it, they came into work one Tuesday and said, the company's shutting down Thursday, pack your stuff.
I'm like a socialist who is libertarian. And
so my dad worked there for about 16, 17 years. There were people that had worked there for 30 plus years. And it was just like, now I understand what you're saying. Well, that's one crappy company.
Tanky Whisperer. Yo, I wish I was the Tanky Whisperer. I'm trying to do as much as I can to de-radicalize Haz's cult, because I feel like there's a bunch of like lost like boys over there. But, you know, I don't know, chat. They are so fucking toxic. They were over there unironically talking about my skull shape the other day. They were unironically fucking talking about my skull shape. Haz could not shut up about, like, my clothes. And, like, he called my... this part I don't understand. He called what I wear a form of sexual harassment. Like, this is like suggestive of, and therefore it's a violation of, I don't know, chat. I don't know. He's got some weird shit going on. Apparently it made him think of sex or tying me up or something not very wholesome. So he accused me of being the bad lady that wears mean things and corrupts his mind with my evil sorceress magic, right? Yeah, it's all my fault, right? For dressing this way, apparently. It's nothing wrong with him. Yeah, no, he's fine. He's totally good. It's
just one situation. I get that. I don't think that
he's a Sigma male.
Unions. I'm just saying that there are particular places where it could be more beneficial than others. The other thing I'll say is it's not a panacea like you're saying, Vaush. Even if it would be an idea to unionize, there's so many things that have occurred over the past 50 years that aren't just the decline in unions that have led to workers being screwed over in this country, such as free trade deals and the outsourcing of labor to China. Even if you like, there's a possibility, and there's many more we could talk
about.
Right. I don't want to go on all day. And this one's very important because what could happen?
Yeah, his take on trans stuff was the weirdest. Okay, it was so weird. He was like, basically like, I have no problem with trans people. I have no problem with gay people when they dress normal. When they look like, basically he was saying like when they pass, when they dress normal, when they assimilate, you know, that he has no problem with gay people. If they, unless they're like a trad wife, right? Basically, that's the belts. Yeah, I don't know, dude. Somehow, like, it's funny because like I know that like some of this, like maybe like did this originally like come from bondage or something? Or I guess they're like belts. So I guess, but I never think of it like that because it was just like kind of the style. It's, I mean, like a long ass time ago, but like
is if enough people unionize for Amazon in the United States,
of, like,
Amazon could just be like, okay, we'll take our business elsewhere. Dude, you're, like, we'll go to a place where we could pay people less. And so now you're in a difficult position because of all these outside things like free trade deals that have shipped labor overseas, bringing in like cheap workforce in the form of immigration and things like that. Now the bargaining power of labor is decreased. And so now someone in West Alabama has
topic right here. If you,
the union sounds like a good idea. Well, I'm making a job that's double the normal rate of people that live in this area, and look, all in all, things are okay. So I don't know if I want to risk it, given what I've seen all over the place.
Are you ready for
was it Amazon? Am I wrong? That was going to put a shop. There was this famous story about AOC complaining about her district. Wasn't that Amazon? And Amazon just packed up and was like, "Fine, we won't come to your district." So those things happen. And I'm not saying that means Amazon's a good company or that's a reason to reject unions. But this is something that's in the mind of someone as they're voting whether or not to accept.
I want to make sure that DemonMama does get the
purple hair and cat ears.
I want to respond to one last thing and then I'll
respond to DemonMama.
Right, then I'll keep my hands on. So
like 1, 2, 3 sets of cat ears.
So broadly, one of the problems we have with small businesses today and with unions today is that so much wealth has been siphoned off into gigantic mega corporations that it's really difficult to engage in the production of startup businesses because the capital isn't there, rents are extremely high, and people don't want to pay reasonable prices for commodities that you could sell to mom and pop shop. Everyone wants to go to Walmart and get it for 2/3 that price because it was made with plastic injectors over in China by basically slaves and then shipped on over here through the Suez Canal. So the problem that we have is that the fact that unions convert small businesses is a product of a lot of downstream economic consequences that we're facing, not just as a product of globalization, but also business practices that defer to these megacorps. So one of the issues is technically outsourcing should be good for everyone in this country. It means there's more money in this country. If you're outsourcing, that means that you're engaging in
some kind of fighting game against Dylan Burns
but when you're specializing, they do this thing better or cheaper. We benefit from it. We take the wealth. That should make everyone feel wealthier because the systems that we've set up in this country should allow that wealth to be distributed, but they haven't been. More money gets stored in offshore Cayman Island accounts, which means the average worker doesn't have as much money to spend. Comparative advantage. Thank you, Chud. That's what we call comparative advantage. The average worker doesn't have as much money to spend, which means that they're more likely.
Vaush, like, when I put a little gator on one of my posts, Vaush was like, is this yours? Is this your gator? He, like, had to know. He was like, I don't know. I think he wanted me to have a pet gator or something. But I don't think it's safe, right? You can't keep a gator as a pet, can you?
From the megacorps and not from small business.
Unless it's like a Redditor. Unless you just mean a Redditor, like you're calling them a gator because they're a small pool of haters.
Which also leads to a ton of other problems, like every neighborhood looking the same because all the mom and pops close and everyone
aka the Edward Scissorhands dilemma. Yeah,
goes to the local Target, and there are a lot of problems here. I mean, maybe you call it corporatism. I think
a dwarf caiman. I think that's what it was. I think that's what I was showing him. But like I thought about, like, you know what I should do is I should actually have one. I should actually, like, you know, and then I was like, wait, but you know what? I think it's dangerous because like, how do you take care of them? Do you keep them in their bathtub? And what if they eat you? Like, right? What if they eat you, but then they feel really bad about it? So not only do they eat you, but they feel really sad because they love you, but they were hungry and you didn't feed them. Oh my God, chat! I don't want to have an alligator because it would probably eat me. It would probably eat me.
This is an inevitable consequence of capitalism because this is benefiting the
that's
people with capital.
That's why I can't have one, Vaush. I would have one.
If we both agree that's a bad thing, I think that unions are a part of the solution to that problem because workers that demand things have power over megacorps too, like Amazon.
Or alligator tier.
And if they have power over megacorps, they have a little bit of political maneuverability.
Really stupid
maybe
and
something to allow companies like Amazon to start paying their fair share, both to workers and to the government. It keeps wealth in this country, which means that there's more wealth being spent by workers, which means people can go back to shopping at small businesses. We had an equilibrium within the system of capitalism. We had an equilibrium. It was strong unions. It was economic systems which circulated wealth around the country, and that worked.
Yeah, it would be really fun until it wasn't.
We've thrown the equilibrium off, and unions, I don't think, are the thing to blame there. It's a combination of outsourcing and the government's unwillingness to do anything about the unchecked power.
Wait, can you actually have them as pets?
But if we fix that, and I think unions are a part of fixing that.
Is that okay for them too?
I think we can benefit everyone,
to like live
and
in
even
captivity?
small business owners will be making more money.
Meow,
That's
meow.
my belief.
Meow,
and
meow.
I'll cede my time, by the way, because I've talked way too much.
Rob regurgitates right-wing talking points.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things I wanted to touch on here. The first off is something that we've kind of been ignoring for the last few minutes, which is that Amazon can't outsource. Amazon has to deliver to the people who are buying here. So there is no option for them to outsource.
Oh yeah, that doesn't actually make sense even, really.
Unless they're going to find a way to pass through mass drone laws, which so far have been shot down pretty extensively. That's just not true. They need local workers in order to make. In fact, the hardest challenge for Amazon is what's it called? I think it's called the last mile.
Like having a horse, but
the last 1 mile is the hardest part of Amazon delivery.
It's a horse
that's where they work people and
exploit
people the hardest. Now, there's a couple of other things that compound with this. One of them being that Amazon is increasingly eating up a chunk of commerce in the United States. These giant corporations, they're the ones that we're mostly talking about with unionizing.
Amazon drones things were creepy.
Have a vested interest in the businesses that they're a part of succeeding. Otherwise, they don't have jobs, and then the union disappears.
I didn't know
so
that.
Now, while there might be some unions that overplay their hand or that fuck up and that ruin the business that they're a part of, a smart union, which is going to be a lot of unions, or a functional union, is going to be hoping that the business succeeds.
Oh my God, chat, I need
but
to
that they're getting their just pay. So when we're talking about that, you don't have to worry too much about small businesses, because small businesses don't really need a union in order to be able to bargain. If you only have 5 employees, it's very easy for 5 employees to say, we're not coming to work unless you pay us more.
If you stand
it's
behind
companies
them,
specifically like Walmart, Amazon, Best Buy, whatever else you want to think of, that we need unions there. And we don't, and because of propaganda, because of constant anti-union thought, because of constant union busting and deregulation, we don't have those unions, which means we have a massive workforce of exploited delivery people all over America, which is allowing Amazon to kill every other business type, by the way. For those of you who don't know, Jeff Bezos has been very explicit about what his goal with Amazon was. His goal with Amazon was to get it bankrolled by investments so that they could run the company at a loss for as long as possible and put out every other competitor out of business. And then they...
So the problem with capitalism is that it like basically sets things up so that the innovations, when you run out of like, new things you can invent, or like ways that you can, increase production, or you end up having to like either take it out of the workers, or I do have to take a break soon, that stay healthy bot. You either end up taking it out on the workers, right? Or you end up like thinking of more and more complex ways to game the system, right? And you can get money from the government. You can set it up so that you like, manipulate the government, you buy the government. Like that's probably the best investment going, honestly. Where could you put your money if you're a big corporation to make the more money? By buying the government, right? And so that they'll pass laws that'll basically funnel money right into your pocket. This shit is like, and so like the meta becomes, manipulate the government, manipulate the market. Basically like Amazon's like, look, like we're talking about free markets, right? Free market is a place where people compete. Like instead of competing, right? So competition means you can't go under what you are, what you are pulling in, right? You can't go under, right? That's what competition is, right? That's your hard limit on the lowest price. But oh wait, Amazon does this thing where they get bankrolled by big fucking financial organizations, and then they end up like working at a loss, making everything artificially cheap, driving everything else out of business. Then after there's no other choice, and if you want to get X, you gotta go to Amazon, right? Then they can raise the price of X, and DemonMama's going to talk about it, that they're already doing this. We can see this in like, the numbers, that like the prices are already starting to go off because they've killed off so many of their competitions. Forget about the mom and pop stores. We're talking about just their like fucking like competitors and shit like that. That's what they're killing off. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, absolutely, Hypercannon. Absolutely. That's the best way to be, is that like with the, awesome, stuff. It's great. Awesome. Vaush
can jack their prices up.
Wait,
that's what Amazon...
I didn't even see what that was a penis of, but there's some chance that Vaush might appreciate it.
Amazon is doing. Amazon wants Amazon to be the only place you can buy anything in America.
Yeah.
And guess what? If that ever happens,
okay, chat,
and there's no unions, America is going to become an Amazon dystopia.
DemonMama and I both know this issue backwards and forwards, so it's a good time for me to go ahead and take a break. Otherwise, I'm just going to repeat what she says, and that's no fun for you. You don't want to hear the same thing twice. Let's just listen to DemonMama say it anyway, because it is her night. It should have been her night. God damn it. I was really hoping, chat, I got to be honest with you. I was ready to be celebrating a DemonMama victory, I was ready to be celebrating that, like... And it kind of sucks that that's not gonna, happen yet. That's not gonna happen yet. Okay. So yeah, keep hope alive. We'll see. We'll see what happens next go around.
overnight. And I bet that we'd only see a few months until we started seeing Amazon company towns and Amazon bucks being paid for wages. And that's not the type of future that I'd like.
Okay, you know? but just to be clear here, right? Like, I don't think that the unionization, if Amazon's that nefarious, and I'm not disagreeing that they are, I don't think that unionizing would be a correct fix-all that would solve all this. And I think, look, let's be clear. I think all four of us are talking that unions
a minute, chat. I want to point something out.
Should be allowed to have the option to unionize.
Look at this.
That could exist either in a socialist or...
Okay, do you know what I don't see? I don't see chat. Do I need to hit a button or something? I don't see chat. Chat's not over here, and chat's not on screen. What does that mean? What does that mean? Does that mean that it was so fucking toxic that Dylan's trying to, like... Is there... I don't know. Is there a way you can yeet your chat? It looks like he yeeted his chat. Did he yeet his chat?
Capitalist system.
I know it was super toxic and, like, transphobic and shit, but...
I think we're all agreeing to that. So to me, the more nuance is, one, do we have proof that it was through subterfuge
there,
right? Or through some sort of nefarious means that these people chose? I don't think that proof exists. I think we'll see what the results of an investigation.
You mentioned earlier that there was there already is evidence. This is the thing. Now we can't say that the entire thing, that the entire vote,
which is exactly my point.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can't throw it out entirely, but the fact, it is a fact that Amazon has already been in trouble in this specific incident. For taking illegal actions. They've already had to be censured by the state. They are cutting every throat that they can.
Okay, so again, we don't have proof. We'll see what the results of the lawsuit are. We'll see
we have proof of that first one, yes.
We don't have proof. We have evidence, but we don't have proof that was what tilted the vote to go the way it did.
The government did have to step in.
Anyways, so
just up, Rob. It's just an inconvenient fact. It's just an inconvenient fact that you don't want to deal with.
One, what system's more responsible for
this? I'll be back.
Sort of more left-wing politicians or right-wing politicians, and secondly, would we, and I'm just going to throw this out there based on a conversation we had the other day, DemonMama, and I'll just ask this real quick to everyone. Would you force unions? Through government force? Do you think every company should have a union through government force?
No.
Okay.
No.
I just want.
I mean, I don't even know how that would work. I think. I think that
we talked about the other day about wanting
to probably the same way around like insurance.
Oh, we talked about like in an ideal world working towards like co-ops. I think that would be great, but that's a much longer term goal than what we're talking about here. Right now, we're just talking about how to save the American worker from just the absolute atrocious conditions that they're in right now.
Okay, so I agree that the American workers in terrible conditions. I don't think that that the main focus needs to be unions, though certainly that could be part of the solution. However, I think you could see things, and I think it's particularly by giving the government more power, which has encouraged lobbying, which has allowed companies like Amazon, because you say lack of regulations, the exact opposite's actually true. Because we give the government the power to intervene in these businesses, it allows people to lobby. It allows Amazon to lobby the government and then get laws that are favorable. The best example I could give is why do you constantly interrupt? Please let me finish my point. You have the opportunity.
Wait, hold on a second. I want to explain.
You say things all the time I disagree with. You say things all the time I disagree with, and I don't interrupt.
Okay. Rob, can you spend 25 seconds finishing your thing, and then we'll go for 30 seconds for DemonMama. There we go.
Yeah, the best example I could give is the stimulus bills that we saw posted that actually were a huge boon to Amazon and Walmart. It was one of the biggest transfers of wealth from small businesses and workers to large corporations that this country's ever seen, and that was interventionist left-wing policies. Even the Republicans signed on. They deserve fault for this as well. Trillions of dollars that's going to cause inflation and went primarily to corporate America off the back of small businesses and working class America.
Okay. DemonMama, and then I'm going to ask a question for the room because since nobody represents the position, I'm going to see if people can engage with it. DemonMama, go.
Sure. So, God, there was a lot of claims there. The first off that I would contest is that the idea that we don't have evidence that unions would be a good answer. Actually, we do. We have not only history, but we also have data on our side. Unions were responsible for a massive, revolutionary change in American work conditions around the turn of the century. And also, we've seen that unionized workplaces have safer work conditions, better pay, and higher job satisfaction. The only reason that people fight against unions is because Corporations make the most money out of it. Now, I also disagree very strongly with this idea that it's government intervention that made lobbying happen. No, it wasn't. It was Citizens United that allowed corporations to give endlessly to super PACs, that has allowed for corporate lobbying to get out of control in this country. Corporate lobbying is out of control, and that's a result of deregulation. That's a result of the government saying, nah, actually, we're not going to really look into this anymore. So yeah, that's just factually false. And it really frustrates me too. Also, Trump's stimulus plan, which transferred a lot of money to, a lot of corporations. Also, if I remember correctly, I believe we went over this data in the last conversation that we had on this. Actually, if I remember correctly, still gave something like 60% of it to smaller businesses. So I do agree that there was a lot of problems with the way that Trump approached it. He gave out a lot of handouts to a lot of friends and allies, political allies and whatnot, through his stimulus package. But I just think that that's a problem of Trump and the Republican Party being horribly incompetent and greedy.
Okay, quickly, I wanted to ask a question. So since nobody, Vaush, is it quick?
I had one quick thing to say, very quick. This is a bit of a side argument there, but it just occurred to me that if you had stronger unions, you could rely on those unions to protect workers and wouldn't have to rely so much on government intervention. One of the reasons why the government seems to keep meddling in the affairs of corporations and their workers is because there isn't really an alternative.
No, hold on, I got to disagree with you there, Vaush. I'm sorry to cut you off, but wouldn't you just be replacing one overlord for another?
Well, I would rather, if I had anybody advocating for the rights of workers, I would rather it be the workers themselves than a bunch of Washington bureaucrats. I mean, unions aren't overlords, they're bargaining. I mean, union leads are voted on by the people who are.
I agree with you there, but I feel like the human condition's being ignored here in regards to absolute power and by the people for the people. I get what you're saying there, who better to represent? But the same thing could be said about electing a congressman to represent you in Washington, whatever the case may be, that comes from your district or somebody from your workforces, which I imagine you're applying.
When we're talking about the needs of a worker in a given workplace, I would much rather have a person who works there, who's been elected as the head of a union, managing and resolving the disputes between workers and the corporation, than government lawmakers who do these massive and wide swaths with essentially no larger oversight. Sometimes they know what they're talking about, sometimes they don't. I think it'd be better for everybody, frankly, if these discussions were kept more local, more intimate, and more direct between the workers and the corporations than every couple of years we have some bombshell revelation where the government does X or Y,
But you see, I agree with you there. I agree with you in that point, because that's why you also, I'm more state versus federal. But the point that I'm trying to make, though, is if there was a union to form wherever I'm at, wherever I'm working, I would definitely want the representative to come from me, from the foot soldier, if you will, the factory worker. But the human condition still exists in regards to as they elevate. So if I'm an elected union representative, am I still a worker, or is that my full-time job now? That's all I do is that, or do I remain a foot soldier?
Depends on the union. I mean, if it's a big enough union, it'll be a full-time job, but for a smaller corporation, it could be. I mean, your argument against overlords ruling over people is the reason why we need some check for corporations. You get it from Washington or from the workers who you hire, but it has to come from somewhere.
Okay,
that's all I'll say.
I'll be the bad guy quick, since nobody wants to be the bad guy. So suppose all these, you're doing everything to help these small businesses, but if these larger corporations can give people cheaper products, better pay, and health benefits comparative to these smaller mom and pop shops, why should the state be stepping in, or anyone stepping in, to help these small mom and pop shops when the workers are getting better conditions and better help from bigger corporations? Why would anybody who cares about workers jump at the bit to help these small mom and pop shops when I can get a better job at Walmart?
I can explain it. Yeah, if you'd like, why would you light a fire in your house to keep you warm in the winter when you could just set off an explosion instead? The short term is fantastic for corporations like this. They can send out all kinds of cheap products all over the place, but they can't last. We know that their plan in the long run, they've been very open about this, is to essentially be able to raise prices back to what they were. Those benefits will disappear. They are gaming the system using massive amounts of venture capital, massive amounts of Wall Street investments in order to essentially screw over an entire country in the name of their own personal profit. And if you know, if we should hope for a wise government that can see forward into the future, should recognize that this isn't sustainable, that this is ultimately only going to serve the interests of the owners of Amazon, the owners of Walmart, the owners of these other big corporations, and won't actually build a sustainable system for us. You don't want just a lighting a cup of gasoline on fire and it makes your house really warm for 10 seconds. You want to be able to stay warm all winter. We want our country to be able to sustain itself into the future with good jobs. And sometimes that might mean we have to challenge some of these really, really nice short-term benefits, like Amazon selling all of their products at a massive loss so that they can get cheap products in the short term, but can ultimately screw over American workers in the long term.
So to put DemonMama's, you know,
it was so peaceful up here.
Oh my God! Thank you so much, TJ. Thank you so much. To put DemonMama's, you know, point into the form of a fairy tale or nursery rhyme or whatever the hell I always do, like, right? It's the gingerbread house, right? You know what I mean? It's like the Amazon is like, yo, do you want some cheap shit delivered to your house? Yes, cheap shit. Oh, you can get more shit. Come on and order some more. If you order more, we'll knock off shipping for you. Yeah, there you go. And the whole time they're operating on a loss. The whole time they're feeding you their house, you know. And once you get, like, you know, enough gingerbread in you, they throw you in the fucking oven and they raise the prices back up on you. It's just like the gingerbread house. So don't get eaten by the wicked witch of Amazon. Okay, funny metaphor. But the other thing about this that I really wanted to point out, and this is the point that we hammer home on here, this is my fucking hobby horse here, is that it's not just about material conditions, which are important, but the game, the meta, is about leverage, okay? So let's take ourselves back to the New Deal. Okay, so it's after the Great Depression, you know, Hoover's defeated, Roosevelt steps in. Roosevelt has some competition, though, from his left. He's actually got a socialist candidate nipping at his heels, and he ends up making the guy vice president just to satisfy those goddamn socialists, right? You know, big business is scared as shit of this, and they're like, this is bad.
But the little dudes come up.
They
and, like,
form a plan
like little dudes
to take out Roosevelt, right? And the only reason that they didn't do it was because of this guy named Smedley Butler that they thought they could corrupt, ended up not being corruptible and didn't do the coup, right? So, you know, you could read about this. What is it called? Like something days in October? Wait, X days in some month. Fucking, does anybody know what I'm talking about? Anyway, but basically, yeah. So, and then after that, you know, we got the New Deal that comes in. Now, granted, important thing, caveat about the New Deal was not for Americans. The New Deal was for white people, right? The New Deal did not include a lot of people of color. 500 days of summer. Wait, no, I don't think it's that. 7 days in May. That's it. Canadian Brunch just got it. That's it. It's 7 days in May. So, yeah, they... essentially what I'm saying is that, like, the New Deal improved immensely the material conditions of Americans. The problem was that Roosevelt was not trying to bury capitalism. He wasn't coming at capitalism with the elbow from the top rope, you know? He was actually trying to save capitalism. And to do that, he basically instituted, you know, something more along the lines of what would come to be called Keynesianism. Keynesianism was an insight that the wealthy had that said, listen, we almost fell to communism during the Great Depression. Let's not let that happen again. Let's throw them some crumbs. Make them feel good. Make them feel like we won the war. Everything's golden. You don't have anything to rebel against, right? And they found some shit to rebel against anyway in the 60s, right? But, like, you know, the idea was, you know, to kind of be the softer, gentler capitalism. That's the Keynesian regiment. And so, like, you'd think that, like, wow, shit's going really well, the rich are back on their heels. They had to rely on this philosophy called Keynesianism, which is, like, strangely generous to the worker, right? What could go wrong? Well, here's what could go wrong. All the while this is going on, they're undermining unions. They are, you know, the union leadership is getting closer to the management. They are doing all kinds of things. So even though the, like, you know, people might have a little bit more money, the overall leverage, which is really the meta, is leverage, okay? This is how revolutions work. They work by leverage. This is how taking over your workplace goes. It's about leverage, you know? But the leverage that we have is decreasing. And you can see now that a lot of the benefits, a lot of the programs of the New Deal have been clawed back. And that's because we didn't get a hold of the leverage because they didn't want us to have it. That's my problem with liberalism. It is a mile and a half better than conservatism. Don't get me wrong. And if I have the choice to vote for a harm reduction candidate, I absolutely will. But I'm going to keep in mind that liberalism is not a philosophy for the working class. Liberalism is a philosophy for capital. And if you think that, you know, if you don't realize that, then you're caught up in capitalist realism and you're reinforcing your own oppression. Anyway, I just had to say that because it was really important. And I remember this point of Dylan that I did not want to miss it. I wanted to add on to what DemonMama said, you know, for the reason that this proposition that Mr. McBurns has offered to us is in fact not satisfactory. Dylan, we didn't come for a piece of the pie. We came for the whole thing, and we're not going to leave until it's in our tummies. Okay, Dylan, you got us? You got us, Mr. McBurns, Mr. Capitalist McBurns. Okay, I just wanted to make that part clear, chat. I just wanted to make that part really fucking clear.
Okay, so quick follow-up question for DemonMama, if I could. Okay, but mom and pop shops are a sustainable model comparative to what? Walmart, who's been a staple of American commerce for a very long time, providing better jobs than mom and pop shops for, what, a good 30, 40 years now comparatively? When is the moment that they're going to undercut and be providing worse jobs than I would have gotten at a random corner store owned by, I don't know, Joe Dirt?
We're already seeing that. We've already seen that happen. In fact, Amazon prices have gone up. I don't have the study on hand, but it's very easy to locate if you want to look into it, how much Amazon prices have actually changed over time. In addition, if we're going to expand this out from just Amazon into talking about stuff like Walmart, well, Walmart has a tendency to create food deserts completely unintentionally because they will put their Walmarts in locations that are not to serve any need, but to serve their maximum profit, even if that means that local people have to drive. Now, that's not saying that mom and pops are going to be the only thing that ever opens, but sustainable businesses that can last in a long time by their foundation are better than companies like Amazon that can offer in the short term, maybe 30 years or so, to offer lower prices or whatever, as they slowly gut out town by town and ruin the local environment as well as the local work environment as well. You know,
okay.
that's the problem.
Just to kind of so like part of the problem is government intervention in many ways actually causes the problem, and then we say, well, now we need the government to intervene to solve the problem. That's not to say there's never a place for government regulation, but oftentimes we can see unintended consequences. So for example, we had before COVID, we had a very low, almost historic low unemployment rate. Well, this is good because it means more bargaining power for people that are looking for labor, that are looking for jobs. But after then we say, well, we need to import a bunch of people. We need to, shut down things, and they ended up resulting in companies like Walmart and stuff doing awesome, while small businesses did poor. To answer DemonMama's claim that the stimulus went to small businesses, the net effect of the policies that we saw over the past year, and this is under Trump as well, don't get me wrong. In fact, the bulk of it was under Trump. The net effect of those policies was to greatly enhance the wealth of companies like Amazon and Walmart, the very companies that you're suggesting that we shouldn't do. Many of those policies were endorsed by people on the left, whether it be the lockdowns, the stimuluses, etc. So another thing that you could see is like minimum wage laws. Like I say this all the time. We have a mom and pop grocery store in my town. People do have a sort of civic sense where they were like, hey, instead of going to the Dollar General, we're going to go to the mom and pop store because we'd rather pay a couple extra nickels to give them the business. Problem is COVID shut them down. The lockdown shut them down. Dollar General's doing just fine and will be able to raise their prices. But even aside from that, a federal minimum wage increase would have also shut them down. Now, Dollar General would be more than happy to pay the increased minimum wage. They'll just pass the price off to the customer and they'll cut people's hours. But they've just lost their only competitor in a 15-mile radius. So they're happy. They could raise their price. So we see things like this all the time, which is these disastrous interventionist policies that are actually harming the power, the collective bargaining of labor. And then again, I'm not saying that unions can't be a good thing, but if we're talking specifically about policies to benefit small businesses, a lot of the problem is the fact that our government has so much power to pick winners and losers, and that because of their intervention and how there's lobbying that's able to then influence them.
There's just one major problem with that, and it's that we know Trump mishandled the lockdown, so I'm not going to dispute your point on that. But with regards to what you're describing capitalism. The economy of scale ensures that larger megacorps will always be more economically efficient than mom and pop businesses, and therefore will always be able to flex their weight around more. It's only government intervention that's kept this problem from cropping up sooner. Anti-monopoly laws, antitrust laws, the fact that it's illegal to engage in certain forms of pricing out your competitors. What you're describing right now is capitalism. Without the government, this would have happened way, way, way faster. If you want to fix
would those companies have scaled to that level without capitalism?
Well, no, capitalism is what allowed them to scale to that. Well, are you saying industry can or cannot thrive with or without it? I think industry can do just fine with collective ownership. But now, whatever the reason why we're here, this is the inevitable consequence of the economic system we live in. The solution to it seems simple enough to me. We need to make sure that people who work at big businesses and small businesses alike get the equitable treatment, and then we need to make sure that we can afford tax breaks and other kinds of preferable treatment to smaller corporations. There are benefits to smaller corporations or mom and pop stores. I don't want to walk down Main Street of my town and see nothing but chain restaurants. I want to be able to see the unique and vibrant local culture that I moved to this city for. And as long as megacorps keep swooping up all of the real estate, that ain't going to happen. So we give preferential tax treatment to small businesses to make sure that they can fight on a level playing field. There are plenty of things that we can do, plenty of ways we can legislate to make sure these businesses continue to exist. And hey, if they're a little bit less economically efficient, if it means the government has to spend a little bit of our tax money, I say that's worthwhile. Because I would rather have a 0.2% hike in my taxes than live in a country without any local culture. And a country where entrepreneurship is dead. Because the only way to start businesses is to be born a trust fund baby and spend the 1.2 million your daddy left you on a new yachting business, you know? I want to preserve those elements of what people, I guess, call the American dream. So I'm okay letting the government be the ones to ensure small businesses can maintain some degree of relevance.
So can I try and understand what you're saying here, Vaush? Because I think I actually agree with you.
After this interaction, I do think we should move on to the next topic of the night.
Yeah, sure.
So I want to make sure that I'm understanding you correctly. So basically, you're in favor of government interventionism as long as it's not favoring large-scale corporations from coming in and actually forming monopolies, kind of like AT&T did back in the 80s. So you're incentivizing local mom-and-pop businesses to receive tax breaks, favoritism over large-scale corp. Is that what I'm getting from this?
Yeah, essentially. There are significant benefits to small businesses that don't necessarily play out in the GDP, but I think those benefits should still be recognized.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I understood them.
Are we going to do final thoughts? Or?
Oh, yeah, I don't know if
that's what we're doing. We're doing final thoughts now.
I'm good to wrap up if...
So each people, like, just 1 minute. So we'll start with DemonMama.
So I contest the idea that on it, like just outright that government intervention is like a bad thing. I don't think that we have any evidence of that. In fact, I would argue that it is a lack of government intervention in the pandemic that led to us having this terrible, like the worst of both world situations, because the government was so hands off. The virus got out of control. We have over 600,000 dead Americans, and we also, because there was no support for small businesses, have the only people remaining are large corporations. I know I've seen this with my own eyes in my own town that I live in. Nearly every local restaurant is out of business now, and the only thing left is McDonald's. That sucks. That is a result of incompetent and incomplete government intervention, not government intervention alone. And I think that's important to distinguish. And also, I will remind everyone that we were talking about unions, which I think that unions are a much, much, much better way of like Vaush said earlier, preventing the government from ever having to get involved. Because if people can self-determine in their business and bargain against their boss, who they produce products and labor for, that solves the problem before it ever even becomes a problem. So support unions. Unions are really important, and unions have all but disappeared in America. We need them back, or else we're going to be facing a Amazon-owned dystopia. Yeah, so that's my feelings on this issue.
Okay, next is going to be Vaush.
Yeah, I think I've expressed my point more or less. There are a lot of people who think this is adversarial, but unless we're looking out for the literal 0.001%, I mean, unless we're out here boxing for Bezos, I think that there are economic solutions to these problems that benefit basically everyone on the supply chain, domestically, locally, workers, union workers, managers, everyone. I mean, it's not to say managers at these Amazon union warehouse or non-unionized warehouses, it's not like they're always doing great either. I know how tough managerial work can be. It's work. And I know that often you're placed under quotas just as stressful as the people below you by the people above you. And the reason these managers are so hard on the people below them is because they know that if they're not, they'll get booted and replaced with a person who will be harder on them. So I don't think this doesn't need to be an adversarial relationship. There's only one group of people who would really hurt from unions, and those are the people who own those Cayman Island, bank accounts. Aside them, and I think they're doing just fine without us helping them, everyone can benefit with a little bit of wealth redistribution that I think unions could facilitate democratically and fairly.
Rob Noor?
So I think basically everyone's agreeing on the substantive issue of whether or not unions could be successful. The disagreements, the scale of exactly would they be able to solve all these problems. I don't think that's the case, though. I have no problem with people getting out and talking about, like, if DemonMama and Vaush and even me would talk about collective bargaining and helping certain businesses out. I don't have a problem with that, with educating people that could be better. I do have a problem with any sort of policy or government force of trying to make that occur, which it seems like no one's advocating anyways. When it comes to the issue of what happened under the law, under the government intervention regard to COVID. No, the government intervention was specifically designed to help these large businesses. Oftentimes you could see large groups of people at Home Depot, Walmart, other places, but the mom and pop local hardware stores and places were closed down because they couldn't meet the burdensome regulations. We'll talk about COVID another time, but there's no evidence whatsoever that any of these lockdowns were necessary, were effective at causing any sort of help whatsoever, or that having a larger lockdown would have been something that would have been beneficial. But the point is just this: the government intervening, and a lot of the policies we see, particularly coming from the left, actually harm workers as well, such as the importing of people, minimum wage laws, which hurt small businesses, but free trade bills like NAFTA and the TPP that were pushed that would have hurt small businesses. All of these things do terrible. And also, businesses don't have to outsource overseas, like we saw with the AOC situation with Amazon. They could outsource to a different city. And lastly, I just want to say, when it comes to the question was, why did these specific people vote in a way? I'm not saying that it couldn't have been untoward pressure from Amazon, but if you look at the average salary and how much they're making, there is credible evidence that people could have made a compelling argument that would have been a risk that possibly that company would have moved. And so they decided, because they were making almost twice as much as what the average person does in that area, they decided that it would be beneficial for them, regardless if you think it's true or not. But they made that decision not because they were coerced, because they actually believe that. Could be possible either way.
John Burke?
Okay, yeah, there was a lot to unpack there. So the first point that was made in regards to there was no government interventionism in regard to the lockdown, which that's actually not true whatsoever. There was massive evidence to show that, whether it be at federal or state level, within month 6, there was over 100,000 small businesses that went bankrupt at the hands of the government in their lockdown. So it makes no sense logistically how DemonMama can sit there and say that there was no government in it. Yes, there was. There 100% was. And there shouldn't have been a lockdown. I'm totally against that. And you can make the face at your TV and hype your crowd up. That's fine. I haven't done that to you, but if that's how you get your people off, go for it. If you want to sit there and say that there was no government in it, then where are those businesses now? Where are those businesses now? That's the problem. So the other point that I want to make in regards to, as far as like the unionization, is leave it up to the people. Leave it up to the local demographic. If they want to have a union, I agree. Vaush makes some solid points. I get, as far as like looking out for the small workers, making sure they get a fair day's wage. I understand that. Also, they're taken care of, not mistreated. So I think, yeah, I like the idea of no government interventionism and allowing the people to vote using democracy or a democratic process to see if they want to establish a union. But I do like the idea of favoring small businesses in the sense to encourage the small or the entrepreneurship mindset to flourish. And Vaush is right on that. There's like certain areas that unless you have a tremendous amount of startup capital, good luck. Good luck. I had to deal with that myself personally. It was very difficult. And yeah, that's, I mean, I'm open to learning a lot about this, but ultimately I think my feel for is I just don't like a lot of government regulation in the sense of telling me what I can and cannot do, because I think it's in the best interest of myself as a business owner and my employees to see everybody flourish. Like rising tides raises all ships. So, but I think there are counter arguments to go against that doesn't make sense in regards to, well, you do have a lot of corporate greed and things such as that. So I don't think it's so simplistic to say yes or no. There's a lot of things to unpack there. So,
okay. Next, we're going to go into the next topic, which this one is a little bit more broad, so to allow for more wiggle room. So if you don't know a ton about one certain area, you'll be able to use this to wiggle around a little bit. Do you think that a cultural shift to the left in the United States would be beneficial for America? Broad, but simple question.
Yeah,
Throw it over to Vaush. Since you're champion, you know what? I'll throw it to you first. I'm rigging the game from the start. You started off.
Yeah, I know, a bit of a contentious take. I know nobody expected it from me, a socialist, but yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool, personally. I have a preference towards that. I think a lot of people on the right especially, have a fear that people on the left just want to flip the perceived imbalances in society. Like, Black Lives Matter types want to make it so black people have power over white people, and, like, women are going to hate men, and, like, so on and so forth. And look, I'll say, especially if you're on Twitter or the internet or whatever, there are a lot of people who may give that impression. But when we look systemically at what is trying to be done and the power systems that are already in place, I think it's a fairly unfounded fear. Maybe it crops up time from time. You know, I'm not a big Robin DiAngelo fan myself, but generally, I feel like we could all do for a little bit of intersectional analysis. What's wrong with our country? Who's being hurt and why? What are the power relations between the people here? Who's affected by what? Who here is affected by what, you know? And what can we do about it? And I think if we take that and we have an honest conversation about it, then we can arrive at a lot of really, really positive outcomes that would benefit literally everybody. I mean, nobody would go home losing anything. So I'll stand for that, yeah.
Okay, next will be DemonMama.
Yes, we absolutely should have a leftward cultural shift. It would not only be good for our country, it would be good for the entire world. The right simply at this point in time is holding everyone back. Whether you're a centrist, a liberal, or a leftist like me, you're being held back by the far right in this country. The far right that peddles conspiracy theories, that rides constantly on hate, everything from their obsession currently, and this cannot be contested. If you spend just a few minutes looking at the most popular right-wing figures online, they're churning out anti-trans content. They're churning out content that cannot be defended against the idea that it's disgustingly racist. It is disgustingly racist. This is a massive problem, and it's holding us all back. We can't even have basic discussions about the future of democracy with people who, by and large, literally call Donald Trump their God Emperor. So if you're out there and you're thinking, well, damn, I don't want to be too mean to right wingers. Well, it's not really right wingers. It's the far right. The far right is like a millstone hanging around the neck of this planet that wants us to go back to some sort of like super, super Christian, anti-degenerate, world where equality is just gone, and we don't actually have to talk about real issues that matter. And I know that not all right-wingers position themselves like that, but a lot of them do. And the most popular voices on the right now are doing that. And I know firsthand. I am a trans woman content creator. I spend my week logging on and seeing that there's 15 new anti-trans videos making fun of my people for being something that they're not. And that's just not acceptable. It's holding back the entire world. We don't even have to touch on economics, although I think we should. But on a social level, we will never have a just world. We will never have a world that can deal with the challenges of things like civil rights and deal with the challenges of things like the environment and climate change and space travel if we can't even get the most basic left-wing reforms in place. We need a left-wing turn. It's required. We won't be able to go to the future with a millstone hanging around our neck.
Okay. Next is going to be John Burke.
Oh, man. Okay, I'll stay on topic. So a little bit about me. I used to be a diehard Republican. I used to think in a lot of terms that I would say DemonMama actually described. There were some things that she said I agree with, a lot of things she said that I didn't. But I think, yeah, there was a lot of conservatives in the GOP, I think from like the Boomer and a lot of the later Gen X, that embodied the idea of Christian values being forced legislatively upon the people, and I don't agree with that. In regards to America becoming more progressive, here's how I see it. If you're trans, if you're straight, if you're gay, I don't care. I think you should be afforded the same human rights as every other American. And in regards to people saying things that, well, you know, I'll skip that. I'll get to that later. But yeah, to my overall thing is that live and let live. Everyone should be afforded the same right. I'll even take it a step further. When people, you know, I used to be against gay marriage, And then I actually, I learned a lot. I got around a lot of people, had my mind changed a lot, and I started to understand. And I was like, you know what? I don't even think the government should be involved in marriage. I think that's a union between two people that if they want to do it, just get a priest, do your thing. But I know it's a little bit more complicated in that regards to taxes and things such as that. But yeah, I think there are some good things that have spawned from progressivism. I think there's a lot more open-mindedness that is coming, especially from like the millennial generation, because no one expected us to do anything worth a damn. We were the give everybody a trophy generation. But I think we've seen a lot of progressive thoughts, and with that, though, does come the bad. If we want to say that the alt-right exists, well, absolutely they do exist. And there's a lot of people that are that do view Trump as God, King, Emperor Trump. That is very concerning. I don't see a lot of mainstream figures saying that. If you're taking into account like Alex Jones, yeah, that guy's like off the rails. But in regards to also, there's people on the far left that are promoting the idea of child drag shows and things such as that. So to demonize one side without showing, and I don't even want to say personal responsibility, because no single person in this panel is responsible for an entire group of people. I don't agree with that. I think individuals are responsible for themselves. So to say that their alt-right is horrible, yeah, I agree. They do try and hold people back. They do want to enforce their religious views on the people. And then I think there's people on the left that do fall into moral degeneracy involving children and things such as that. And it does exist on all specters. But yeah, I think the country will be better off in some capacity going more progressive. But overall, the case should be do whatever the hell you want. The government should not be intervening. If a baker doesn't want to bake a cake for a trans couple, he shouldn't be forced to do it. Freedom for all.
Next is going to be Rob.
Okay, so the problem with this topic is going to be, how do we define the left? So in some senses, we do need to go more left in what traditionally were considered left-wing values, such as free speech. Like Berkeley was considered the home of free speech. Now the modern left is anti-free speech. So when they say go more left, they mean more, we should deplatform people. We shouldn't engage with people that disagree with us. We need to censor everyone we disagree with. We need to have cancel culture, et cetera, et cetera. So no, we don't need any more of that. The way the left is considered today, how we understand how it's practiced in the country as we see it today, no, we don't need more of it. And the first thing we have to ask is, what direction has the pendulum been swung? Almost every institution in this country has become far, far more left-wing. And could you say the country is better now than it was, say, even what we considered on the left 10, 15 years ago? No, I don't think so. Specifically when the question talks about culture. We could see, for example, academia is a cesspit at this point, and that's because such a radical shift to the left. You don't have to take my word for it. You could take left-wing professor Jonathan Haidt, who founded Heterodox Academy, that talks about the indoctrination that comes with the radical shift in extreme left-wing politics that's occurred in academia. You could talk to James McWhorter, that talks about the toxicity and the new racism is anti-racism, where he talks about the elect, the critical race theory people that want to demonize people based on their skin color and make the world focus victimhood and skin color. We'll talk about the trans issues. That's the next topic, so I probably won't focus on it much here unless it really comes up. But yeah, I think free speech and things like that are important. We've shifted too far radically to the left. It's causing division in this country, the likes we haven't seen for decades, and it's a really bad thing. So instead, what we need is a shift back towards the right culturally, while understanding that what we really need in this country is a balance of ideas from the past and from progressing. Like, those things are important. You don't just throw out the entirety of the past. So we'll get into a definition of what we consider left and what parts of the left would be good. But certainly right now, our culture has radically shifted in every institution, including corporate America, that's continuing to exploit people using the ideals of the left and lip service of the left. That's how bad this shift to the left's become. We now have Nike that's going to criticize the United States, or LeBron James that'll criticize the United States while they're dealing with China. Major League Baseball will move from Georgia over a reasonable law, but they'll still have games in China. And so this is what the left's allowed. Corporate America has totally co-opted this radical shift to the left, and it's leading to a disaster for this country and for workers and other people that we talked about previously.
Okay, so the round is open. Okay. You may engage freely. Again, remember the rules. Continue.
It got bad.
You muted, Vaush.
It got really bad since I left. It got really fucking
sorry,
bad.
The
champion.
You should
have just let him keep going for like a minute.
Moving around. Why didn't you just let me keep going for a couple minutes? Come on, I could have been building something.
So bad.
Okay, I take issue to several points there. First and foremost, there's one thing that I don't want to discuss here, and it's corporate performative wokeness, okay? Because that is not the left. So right now, there are more Democrats than Republicans in America, more progressive-minded people, I guess, than the opposite. And for that reason, corporations stand to make money off of virtue signaling to that demographic. They have done this for all of the history of businesses. Back in the 1950s and 40s, they were virtue signaling with their like anti-black messaging. No Irish need apply. Further beyond that, there were businesses which would advertise themselves as being, you know, like back in the abolitionist days, always. If a business thinks that it can make money by appealing to a certain set of moral sensibilities, it will do so. And right now,
can I ask a question, real quick question on that? If you don't mind? Would you say back in the 50s and 60s that one of the
for some reason, cis people tend to see, like, I mean, like, to be fair, though, there is, like, plastic surgery that goes on that is, like, gender confirming for some people. So, but, like, I mean, so, but, like, they view it through that lens as like, a vanity. But, like, it's so weird, because, like, right, on one hand, you have cis people that definitely, even if they don't realize it, a lot of them have really assimilationist feelings. A lot of them think you're valid based on how much you pass and how much you vibe or look like a girl or do, you know, perform their expectation of femininity, right? If you're a trans woman, you know, masculinity if you're a trans guy or whatever, you know, you almost are forced to perform their idea of non-binariness if you're non-binary, right? You know, to kind of convince them of your validity and make you like, you know, okay, but like you still got to fit into a box. It's just like a slightly different kind of box, right? So there's a lot of that shit, you know, that's either unconscious or conscious of like that, you know, trans people are supposed to fit into certain boxes and to kind of assimilate. Yeah.
Solutions was we should have had a shift to the left.
Well, I mean, yeah, because the civil rights movement.
Right, and it's going to be worse if the culture has shifted so far to one direction or the other that we'll see that it'll be worse. Why do you think you're admitting right here that we've already shifted massively to the left? Right, we've shifted massively to the left. That's why corporations are virtue signaling to it.
Wait, hold on. Well,
actually,
so to
Rob,
me,
he's saying that they've done this entire history, and I agree with Vaush on this.
Right.
It was just a different context.
Yeah. But like
it was virtue signaling for the sake of like racism instead, like Jim Crow era, saying, "Hey, we don't serve."
Yeah, okay. I guess. Sorry, it came back to me, Chad. I was like, wait a minute. I couldn't think of it for a second. But the thing, it's just weird because on one hand they want us to assimilate, and on the other hand, they're like, wait, like gender affirming healthcare? Oh, you're on your own for that. That's clearly just your own little, you know, thing that you like. You know, I don't know, like to call it like to classify it with. As a vanity is actually fucking offensive. And it's really fucked up coming from the same people that want us to assimilate, you know, right? They don't want to see trans people, but they, anyway, they like by which I mean they want, you know, trans people to make everything easy on them. Oh yeah, you want to, so I want to point out a bad habit that the host of this panel's got, all right? And he did it to me too, okay? He uses like they pronouns on people that he knows, people whose panels he's been on, people whose pronouns he kind of should know. DemonMama got it a lot too. And like, I mean, like, it's okay if you like, you know what I mean? Like, don't know the person and you want to default to they, and like, yeah, that's better than like, you know, but it's kind of like, I feel like too many cis people are trying to use it as a cheat code of like, oh, I don't have to learn any of everybody's pronouns. If I just like, and then they only do it to trans people. So it's like, if there's any doubt, refer to they. And, you know, it's like, no, bro, that's not it, Chief. That's not it, Chief. And the other thing that fucking flies on this panel that I am so put out with, and this is fucking bullshit, Dylan. Like when somebody says fucking transgenderism, that's a slur. That's equating our identity with an ideology. And that's what's wrong with these fucking shit-ass debates, is that our identity's not up for debate, and our identity is not an ideology, right? They is a good example of people until you know a trans person's preference. Yeah, but like once you know their preference, right? Yeah, it's not a cheat code. And that's what a lot of cis people are doing, is they're just like, they don't want to deal with the, misgender thing, and so that they just like anybody who's like, they perceive as trans, they end up using they pronouns. Or I don't know, dude. There's a lot of like allies like who like, if you actually check their knowledge, they're like missing a few. They got a few things. They're understanding anyway. They're like, we appreciate you though, allies, even if you're not really very cognizant of the people that you would be allies to. Anyway, let's get back to the panel.
Black people, and it's like, oh yeah, I'll shop there. But now today,
they've done this forever. I mean, but this isn't like the left. It's not co-opting the left. That process of corporations trying to make money by repping the values of their perceived customer base is.
I wear 70% men's clothes at this point in my life, but people still gender me as ma'am because the backpack on my wheelchair is pink, and it's like I like that backpack, so I have to pick between a backpack. Oh god, yeah, it's like they want you to perform, yeah, I mean, well, I don't know, we all know about the performative aspect of gender.
As old as commerce itself.
If I wouldn't, they're doing it to the left now is because we've had a radical shift to the left.
The reason we've
that shift, corporations wouldn't be virtue signaling.
Well, hold on. The society,
both are actually saying the same thing.
I want to make sure Vaush has a period to respond.
I just want to say society has been moving to the left.
Are you literally bitching that people move to the left? Rob, that's fucking pathetic. Are you literally snowflaking that people move to the left? Like, if we hadn't had that shift to the radical left, then we wouldn't have this issue of corporations doing wokeness. So it's the left's fault for being appealing to people because it caused the corporations to make more what they perceive to be like left-wing decisions, which we all know. And a lot of times when you get a gift from a corporate benefactor, they're like, yes, we'll give you this gift. We're going to change it to Womexen just for you. It's going to be Womexen now. Are you happy? And it's like, what? What? Like, it's like when your grandmom gives you a gift and it's like something that is just like, no offense, grandma, but like, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to use this. Like, I don't know, like, why you thought this would be useful, but I love you because you're my grandmom, and I'm not going to, like, not going to display any, dissatisfaction or anything because, like, that would be rude. But, like, realistically, what the actual fuck? Like, yeah. Thanks for the Bible, Grandma. Oh my god, yeah.
Left for hundreds of years. That process has been fairly ongoing. Whether we're talking about the treatment of like non-heterosexual people or non-white people or just basically any minority demographic, society has slowly been getting more progressive.
Our auto
and
mod
unfortunately,
is like
your
hardcore.
concern has been echoed throughout the ages because the stuff you're saying right now is what they said after slavery was abolished. It's what they said after the suffragettes were allowed to vote. It's what they said after the civil rights movement and the gay rights movement in the 1980s. They said it in 2015 after gay marriage was made legal stateswide. Always the criticism
Tina Turner from that Mad Max movie.
But now it's time to shift back to the right. We're going too far into degeneracy. We're going too far into anti-American values. Well, to me, I don't really care how far left or right we are. I care about addressing the problems we face with solutions that work. And right now, we have a lot of problems that I think could be fixed by moving further leftward. I felt that way about the civil rights movement, or I guess I would have if I'd been around back then. I certainly feel that way about, the Jim Crow and slave days. It always seems like a shift leftward helps, and that the conservatives are the ones clinging on to the dust of history, while progressives are the one making the new bold argument that a generation later gets accepted as standard fare. So what we need to talk about right now is what are the problems we can face, and what can we address them with? To me, we got a lot of racism, a lot of sexism, a lot of transphobia. We can address that. We can address it sensibly. Some of these things can be addressed without any government intervention. It's just a cultural shift. And some of it maybe needs a little bit of wealth redistribution. But if we fix these problems once, they're fixed forever. And I think that's something worth investing in.
I got to disagree with you in regards to I don't think that it's going to be fixed forever. I think we're dealing with issues that exist since the dawn of mankind. I think these issues, I think as long as ignorance exists, we will always have these issues. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. But I do want to bring it. Yeah, that I would say yes. We could
Oh
we could
my
work out
God.
100%. But the thing that does disturb me in a sense is that I feel like there's a lot of people that
Maybe because I'm contractually obliged not to say the D word, since like Dylan technically owns Bird Brains still.
regards to cancel culture, the restricting rather of free speech.
That means that any decisions that he has as far as words that are banned from the hippy dippy, they also have to be banned from Bird Brains. So I'm not allowed to say daddy on my own fucking, like I can say it now because it's not Bird Brains, but on Bird Brains, I'm no longer allowed to say daddy because Dylan has like asserted his right of ownership over Bird Brains, interfering with my panel show just because he's a big corporate dipshit who thinks he can just swing his fucking hippie dicky all over town and slap us all in the face with his corporate toggle cat ears. Yeah, don't mind if I do.
Disagreeing with people. I know before we actually started the debates, DemonMama and Rob were discussing transgenderism and things such as that.
No,
And
this is what I'm
having a
talking
simple
about.
conversation like that, I think.
Don't. Yeah, DemonMama knows. Don't let that. Yeah, no, dude, you gotta call this shit out. Fuck that, dude. I hope DemonMama gets a chance to fucking call this bullshit out. But she's at least looking at, like, at least she's communicating, you know, verbally that this is not all right.
I think is exactly what's needed.
Which is more than I see from the host of the panel. Yeah.
These days. But unfortunately, regardless of what y'all were actually saying, it's like there's a lot of people who don't want to actually have these conversations because it's been classified and labeled that if you disagree with somebody over one instance, say for example, transgenderism, instinctively people naturally go to transphobic. And phobia meaning denoting the fear of. There can be actual disagreements.
Let me cut you a break, okay? Before you get yourself in any more trouble, just based on that alone, pretending I have no preconceptions about anything else, forget everything else you say. Dylan would look really good with flowers in his hair, unironically. But, like, forgetting everything else that you've said so far, okay? Like, let me be good faith for a second and say, look, you might not be saying transgenderism for a bad reason. You might have heard somebody else say it, and no one challenged it, Dylan. And no one challenged it, Vaush. And you thought it was okay because no one challenged it, right? Maybe it's not your fault. I will super duper duper steelman you and say that you're not doing this out of a desire to classify my identity as an ideology and thus put my validity up for fucking debate like some kind of monster, right? I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, John Burke. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt just so you can see how good faith a lefty can be when she's incredibly naive, when she's like literally been canceled like 90% of the time for being too nice to someone, for believing someone when they gave me a little pleady face, for wanting to believe that like something wasn't like what it looked like, right? You know, but seriously, it makes me so sick that this bullshit meme is allowed to perpetuate itself. Look, I know it might feel petty and it might feel like you're being a blowhard SJW, but don't let them fucking spread this bullshit. There is no transgenderism. There is trans rights. And I think that's what you meant to say, right, John Burke? Right? You meant to say trans rights. It's not that you're a transphobe. It's just that you were ignorant of that. But now, assuming you've seen this, you're not ignorant. Okay, so do better, bud. Okay, anyway, let's get back. Let's get back to our little dudes on the panel and DemonMama.
Doesn't mean I hate you. Doesn't mean I think you're a bad person. Doesn't mean I think you're a bad human being.
God, you are so full of shit. Oh my God, you're already pissing me off. I'm already losing my patience. I said, oh yeah, I'm gonna steelman this fuck. Oh my God. Oh my God.
think that's what we need to get more back towards.
There's like a lot I'd like to speak on this, seeing as how this is something I would like to hear on a daily basis. And in fact, on the last panel I was on here, I did encounter some pretty explicit transphobia. See, the problem is, it's not that people don't don't understand or want to understand and want to have a question. It's that they
not to pause DemonMama but for too long, but like just so people understand, like that's the framing, okay? Like the way that Republicans do little things, like they don't call it the Democratic Party, right? They call it the Democrat Party. Because the Democratic sounds like, oh, Democratic, I like things that are democratic, right? Democrat sounds like a dirty rat. And honestly, that like shit works. That shit actually primes you to think about like, you know, a Democrat, like we might even have a different conception of what a Democrat is versus a Democratic senator from the state of Vermont, for instance.
Never get to that point in the first place. And I will give Rob a lot of credit for this, because Rob is one of the, on this particular issue that we disagree a lot, Rob is quite personally,
like, generally you can tell if somebody isn't aware the ism term is offensive, because it's they'll say African American instead of black because they don't want to be offensive.
Very respectful to me. And most right-wingers are not. That is just a fact. I have encountered this so much. I engage constantly. I have people in my chats constantly. I'm always willing to have a dialogue.
Let me give you a little,
as long as some basic respect can be established.
This is the girl that's going to get called bad faith, unhinged, off the rails, all kinds of bullshit by a chat later on, right? Coming out and being, I would say, as somebody who's been accused of being overly nice to bad people before, like overly, you know, good faith to Rob in this situation, right? But still, there's nothing you can do to satisfy these fucks.
But that basic respect is
gnome's gonna gnome.
Almost never.
Well, DemonMama, you've been disrespectful to me since we started.
Gnome's gonna gnome fuck.
I don't think I've been disrespectful because of your identity.
I would highly disagree with you.
Came in here talking.
No.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, there you go. This is what you get. This is what you get for being overly fucking, you know, good faith, assuming the best. But no, you have to deal with these fucks.
What I disagree with you on, you were disrespectful. It had nothing to do with identity. It had everything to do with what the topic we were discussing. You were disrespectful. So based upon what you just quoted me,
I know you're jumping in. You don't want to have me talk, but if your feelings are hurt, I'm very sorry that your feelings were hurt.
You see, now you're being condescending again.
Like, I don't speak Portuguese, unfortunately.
You see, so it's based upon what you've based upon everything you've just said.
One second. There's three people talking at once. And here's the pro tip. I know John must understand this. He's hosted panels. It's crazy. This is magic, actually. When three people talk at once, you don't get triple A information. You get none of it. So what we're going to have is Demon finish their point, then John, then Vaush.
Oh my god.
Fair? Demon.
Yeah. So, we have a lot of ways. We have a lot of ways to go. I don't really like the idea that the Civil Rights Act getting basic equality for Black people in America should be considered like a far swing to the left, and that we need to go back from that. Like, what, should we just have some slavery? Like, no, I don't. I think that's a ridiculous false equivalence. We need to go to the left because the world has been staunchly locked in a far right worldview for most of history, and it sucked for most people. For myself, there's like a couple of things I really wanted to talk on before I yield my time. The first one being that 10 years ago, I couldn't get healthcare because I was trans. That's it. Just because I'm trans. That was considered a pre-existing condition, and I would be ruled out of getting healthcare that I needed. That's pretty discriminatory. That's pretty unfair. I don't have a...
These parts were painful. He explicitly states it has nothing to do with identity, and nobody brought attention to it.
Choice in that. It's just who I am. Next, the other thing that I wanted to bring up is that the right is the king of cancel culture. The religious right has been the main people trying to forever. The Hays Code was predominantly Christian. It was made to appeal to the traditional Christian Republican right in America. All of these things have been for the longest time the domain of the right wing. And so you get mad that a couple of of people on Tumblr criticize your shitty Twitter takes. Well, that's not cancel culture. I'm sorry. Now, mob mentality is always going to be a problem no matter what stripe of the world you come from. But the idea that the left is the ones doing cancel culture when it's only recently that even Tumblr and the internet even existed so that people could call you out on your bad takes, that's not cancel culture. You're just getting a little bit of criticism.
Yeah, it had to be Tumblr.
Okay,
that's how you get called out. It's on Tumblr, right, Cora?
So I'm gonna write their name down, John.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I highly disagree with saying the right is the king of cancel culture. I'm not going to say the right didn't participate in cancel culture back in the early days of, when Christianity dominated this country. 100%. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
He doesn't like the religious
point as well, talking about that people would
religious right
to being racist and people would favor that.
But
they want to shop there. I'm not going to say that doesn't exist. 100% it did. And that's why I think progressivism has come in and actually done a lot of good in that capacity to where I think more and more.
This is the weirdest shit, yo. This is the weirdest shit. Like when they don't fully adore the religious right, and they do more like but they still find a way to get to these weird trad ass values.
Conservatives, I'm happy to see this, are starting to understand the importance of the separation of church and state and how your religious values should not be forced on anybody else, especially through the legislative process. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with you being discriminated against in regards to being transgender and seeking mental health.
He seems like an Ayn Rand Republican.
Yeah. Excuse me. No, you shouldn't be discriminated upon that. Again, I think that's like, it's not right. But to say that the right is the cancel culture, I disagree with that. You had Gina Carano that was just fired from Disney because she made a beep bop boop tweet, and that wasn't even in regards to transgenderism, and they jumped on her for it. So to sit there and try and pin this all on the right and act like the left hasn't had like their hand in this pot, I think that's very disingenuous, intellectually dishonest. Yes, they absolutely have. Both sides are guilty of this. They did it with Sean Hannity. When Keurig was going to drop Hannity, then Republicans rallied and said, oh, we're going to throw out our Keurigs. Like, okay, well, you're throwing away a good coffee maker. They already got your money. What sense? So to sit there and say that it's just one side is very unfair and it's very unbalanced. But what I say the right is like probably spawned it? Yeah, to an extent, possibly. But why are we pointing fingers at this point? If we all agree that cancel culture is bad, pointing fingers at one another isn't going to solve that problem. But it seems like that's what this has turned into, is just...
Dylan was really bad at monitoring this, in my opinion. Also feels like him making this 4x4 is what ended up this clusterfuck. Yeah, I know, with these two like fucking nepotism additions, right? Just like his buddies or whatever. Is Dylan gonna like learn to make like truck rants like Rob now? It definitely should have been a tag team. Oh yes, based. Instead, just maybe do what you promised. Have 1v1 DemonMama versus Vaush. Yes, that's what we all wanted to see.
No, you talked.
He's moderating?
No. So when you sit there and we want a finger point, we're not achieving anything. Sure.
Gina's the Star Wars person, right? Okay, just continue. Sorry, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, Gina Carano, yeah. So there's been a lot of that. And if companies want to bend the knee, I'm not against that. Like, I'm not against
the
Disney
Gina Carano discourse. God, no.
If that's the route they want to take, I believe it's your right as a business owner. Do what you see fit. I don't agree with it, but it is what it is. But to go off the other stuff as far as progressive, I think there's been a lot of good that's happened as a result. We've seen a lot more push for equal rights and things such as that. Yeah, 100%. But again, I do feel like, and I do agree with Vaush, that whether it goes left or right, for me, it's like I wish it would favor more individual liberty, which I think encompasses what I want, and also what I think DemonMama wants.
Whether it goes left or right, you've made it quite clear which way you want it to go, Mr. Steak and Whiskey 2020.
In regards to you being treated,
you've made it quite clear what your cultural fucking orientation is, bud.
For your health. And I think that should be all encompassing, whether it be left or right. I think that's a basic human freedom. So that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I recognize that there are some examples that you could sort of.
What happened?
But
what happened?
A lot of that was directed towards DemonMama, so I want to make sure they have time to respond.
Yeah, I just have a quick response to this, which is that I reckon.
Oh yeah, she, right? Am I wrong, chat? DemonMama's pronouns are she, her, right?
Recognize that there are some sort of cultural issues that you could probably claim.
I don't know, like the fucking pronoun thing isn't the worst thing in the world. It's just one of those things that, like, I feel like, okay, dude, it's incumbent upon us to stop this shit when we see cis friends of ours doing it before it spreads, and also do it for them, because they're posting cringe and they don't even realize it, and you can let them know. Be like, no, don't do that. Stop. Somebody that's Dylan's friend, Danabo, somebody get at him and fucking, like, just...
A lot of people got really worked up about. I think maybe you could say even some of that is in the Gina Carano.
She, her, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And it's okay if Dylan doesn't know her, but he fucking knows her. They're friends. It's weird.
situation. But if you look into the Gina Carano situation, it wasn't just one tweet. There were a lot of tweets that made a lot of people feel offended. And she is one of the front running actors in a public television show that's run by a corporation. The corporation made that decision to distance themselves from her. I mean,
this is the thing, cis people. You have the power to make it really chill to hang out or to make it really weird. It's all in your hands. How do you want to interact, right? How do you want to interact? Come on. Like, you want to make it chill? You want to make it chill? Because I think, yeah, we could all use some more chill in our lives.
To me, that's not really the same thing as me literally not being able to have the right to healthcare because the laws in the country that are pushed and defended predominantly by the right wing of America. Right. Yeah, like and
it's a weird thing. Like, what I've noticed is that a lot of cis people just, like, whenever they are talking to a trans person, they get, like, nervous and they're worried about, like, I mean, I sort of understand it. Like, they don't want to say the wrong thing. They don't want to piss you off. And it's like, yo, it is uncomfortable to get misgendered. It fucking sucks. It hurts. It's like you stepped on my toe, okay? Think about it that way. It's like you stepped on my toe really hard. Now, if you stepped on my toe really hard and I realized you didn't mean to, I'm going to be super forgiving about that, right? Because I know you didn't want to step on my toe, and my toe really hurts, and I might be mad or something like that, but I don't hate you, okay? So don't make it awkward. It doesn't have to be awkward. It can just pass right by. Misgendering can be like a very, very minor detail in a conversation, or it can be a sticking point. Please, please don't let it be a sticking point, because that is so fucking awkward for us.
Totally different things. I get it. It's frustrating when people get mad about products or they get mad about a person that they don't like in their show. But this stuff happens all the time, by the way. Like this happens even for like non-political issues. Somebody
meow, 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 meow. Meow, 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 meow. Sorry, chat. I have to.
Wrestling is a great example.
Excessive meowings tonight.
Example of this. We all love wrestling here. In wrestling, there's been a million times where somebody won a fight and half the fan base thought they didn't deserve to win that fight, freaked out, and it caused Vince McMahon to do something to make more.
Yeah, I agree, Devious Chillster. I think this decision was extremely unfair. This will go down as one of the most unfair decisions. Like, this disputed title. Now, you know, it still rests with Vaush's name, but now the name has an asterisk next to it. And that asterisk is the question of what the fuck, who are the 5 people who decided this shit? And how far up Dylan's ass do they live?
Money, you know? This happens all the time.
That's the real question, right, chat? Am I right, chat? Am I right, chat? How far up Dylan's ass do these judges live?
Obviously, that is irrelevant. But when we're talking about the right versus left with regard to cancel culture, it was the right that pushed through things like the Comics Code, which outright banned horror comics. Like, that's artistic expression being strongly clamped down. It's the right that pushed through also music censorship. The right has a bad track record.
Am I right?
Who are you convincing, though? Like, when you're sitting there saying the right or the left, who are you convincing? Like, if you want, I think the ultimate goal is that you're wanting to win me over to your side and support your argument.
This was like a watershed moment. Like, a lot of people
saw. But by you continuously finger
look,
pointing, it was the left that canceled Gina Carano. But I think both the points that
a lot of people are seeing tonight a side of Mr. McBurns that we have not seen. You know, a lot of people think that this is just a character that he plays, this Vince McMahon, ultra-capitalist character. But I'm starting to see the longer that he wears the mask, the more his face is changing to match its shape. The more he's becoming the character that he plays. Chat, I feel like we're losing the Dylan Burns that we used to know to be replaced by a evil capitalist heel version of himself.
We're making are 100% accurate. The cancel culture is cancerous. It needs to go away. It needs to stop. But again, the idea of finger pointing and saying, you did this, you did that, both sides are guilty of this. So if you want to continue the Mr.
Sexual
Potato Head,
deviance.
yeah, so I think we're getting worked up about stupid stuff. I think it goes back to what Vaush said. I've said that many times in my own following. This is corporations playing upon the dollar bill. They honestly don't care. If you really think large-scale corporations and businesses really give a damn about your individual rights, the fact that you're trans, they don't. They really do. You know why? Because they know you're going to spend money. It's actually reported that black demographic spends way more money on clothing and shoes, and that's why Nike doubled down on Colin Kaepernick and the flag, all that stuff. Go look at the statistics. It's incredible. Do you think Nike actually really cares?
Yeah, because I'm not allowed to say daddy on Bird Brains anymore.
But again,
because
then
of Dylan.
Your point actually still stands for the right pitch the Knick fit of Colin Kaepernick and everything. Like, oh my God, we're going to boycott him. Again, I'll be completely transparent. When Kaepernick took a knee, it really pissed me off. But then again, I had to take a step back and really think about it, be educated. So you know what? It was actually kind of a beautiful thing.
Mean in the
fact that this guy got to do that, exercise his free speech, protected, might I add. It's fucking beautiful. Pardon my language. It's beautiful. I don't agree with it, but I can't sit here and cherry pick somebody's right
for everyone's own good.
I think it's a very beautiful thing to say. Now the NFL fired him, then we go back and the whole idea of free market, they can do what they want. But again, go back to the original point. The finger pointing, that's not going to fix this problem. If we keep saying the right did this or the left did this, what are we going to fix? We're just going to keep sitting here going around the round table like, well, you did this. Okay, can we all agree that cancel culture isn't going to fix anything?
I have a point on this.
Yeah,
I'll get to eventually.
I yield. I'm sorry.
Vaush, you've been waiting a while, then Rob.
Can we all just agree to cancel culture? Okay, John. Okay, John. We see you.
That it's okay to publicly denounce a person. If an actor won an Academy Award and they went up there and Sieg Heiled and gave a 3-minute speech on the need to eradicate
there's a good idea.
I'm pretty sure. I feel like I hope the conservatives would agree on this one. I hope we would all agree that hey, maybe we should sort of rethink hiring this person.
Oh man, I've already been told what I'm supposed to think by other people on this panel, so I'm kind of like.
I know. I'm taking an inference. So
I agree.
We know that at some point there's a type of behavior that warrants, I guess, what we would call cancel culture. What you said, John, is that you want conversations, and I love conversations. Yeah. To me, the problem is that oftentimes conversations are held in bad faith,
and
or
conversations with Vaush are actually pretty good.
Socially manifest whatever oppression is being discussed. So take trans issues. Trans issues.
It feels on theme. Catnip.
Okay? I got a bachelor's in sociology, and my professors still didn't know
that's
what they were
true. Spicy catnip.
I honestly learned more from the internet than I ever did from education or proper.
I don't know. I don't know if
even
I
online,
want
there are a
catnip
lot
to be
of different
spicy though,
interpretations. It's
chat.
an ongoing subject,
It might
and
burn
a
my
lot of what we
tongue.
understand about trans issues runs in complete diametric opposition to what we've been told traditionally about men and women and how all this works. And I think the discourse there is not only going to happen, it's a good thing, because otherwise you can't just expect people to get on board with mantra. You can't just say this is the dogma, this is the party line, roll with it. But we have to recognize that this problem has happened before. We had this problem back during the 1960s, because back before then used to be you were white, you could just kind of say the N-word, you were kind of okay, like it's just fine. And then it feels like, and it felt like to a lot of people back then, I know this because I talked to my grandma's friends, somebody snapped their fingers, all of a sudden you can't say that anymore, and all the discourse changed and all that.
I hate it when people talk about when they talk about like the inward discourse and they make it sound like oh man, it was so good you could say the N-word. That's not what Vaush is doing, but there's something like sometimes when they talk about like when they like how it's a heated gamer moment, it's like it feels so good to say it. I'm like, really? I don't think you could pay me enough to say it. Jesus.
Now it's not politically correct and so on. Now that's not to say people who have questions about trans issues are the same as people who want to say. It's just that sometimes these big cultural snaps happen, and it leaves a lot of people feeling like they don't have the right to even talk about what's just taken place. So I encourage the conversation. The only thing that I want to be careful about is, are the conversations that we're having good ones, and are they the conversations that might hurt the people the conversations are about? So some people like to, example, converse about, say, black-white IQ gap. Interesting subject for academic discussion, but people don't often talk about it because they're interested in the science. They talk about it because they're looking for a proxy by which to express hatred of black people. Sometimes you see that with the trans stuff too. It's not really a good faith conversation. It's just about bringing these issues to light so they can be used as weapons, as bludgeons to hit people with, So we have to be careful about that. Maybe we'll have a couple of awkward years or decades on these issues, but I think that good faith conversation is the only way forward. But it has to be good faith. That's the only possible way to get through this.
Yeah,
I think based upon.
I'm
sorry, Robin. I apologize. Robin.
Yeah. So first, time to get to talk on this topic. So there's a lot to say. First off, everything that DemonMama and John Burke were talking about, I could sum up in this. Cancel culture. When the right was the dominant force in culture, I would have blamed the right for that cancel culture. Now the left is the dominant form in culture. Guess who gets the blame for it? Yes, I absolutely agree. I have not changed position on this. I've been pro-free speech from the time I was a youngster. I remember Dee Snider and John Denver going on Capitol Hill to argue against censorship of music. I remember reading about the comic book code and how terrible that was. Heck, one of my favorite comedians is Lenny Bruce, who was routinely arrested.
Oh my God, this is the worst.
Because he was making fun of the Catholic Church.
So
yes, all of that stuff was terrible. And so when
right-wingers love to bring up like Lenny Bruce and George Carlin and make it sound like he's like fucking one of them. Because he would complain about like the kind of cancel culture he was complaining about is like not being able to say like titties. I guess we can say titties. We can say titty streamer even, right? I don't think you could say that back in the day. There was like 7 words that you weren't allowed to say, and he had this whole routine about like those 7 words.
Talks about like, oh well, this stuff used to happen in the past. Of course, it used to happen in the past.
There's not a lot where he's actually, you know, his real viewpoint was like actually like salvageable as a right-wing thing. Like they're really twisting his shit to even say this.
It was a sign that the pendulum had swung too far culturally to one side, because it wasn't just them enforcing laws and things like that. The real problem was that was the dominant culture.
The level of this that's hard to parse, though, is was it a part of the show though? Dylan framed himself as a corrupt official on Twitter by accompanying his announcement with the match being a 4-way multiple gifts of Vince McMahon. So if is he playing up being less objective as a moderator, or is it just me being mistaken? I'm not entirely sure.
Narrative, which those were the things that you could,
even if it was part of the show or something, it wasn't fair to DemonMama. It was honestly kind of really shitty.
Say that's exactly what we see happening today, except it's on
I don't know. Yeah, I feel like look, if you're LARPy wrestling shit, you know, if it results in better debates, then I'm all for it. But if you want to have something that's a championship, it needs to be a one-on-one debate. I mean, can we fucking admit, okay, chat, spicy take. Get ready to cancel me. One-on-one debates are better. One-on-one debates are better, right? The only thing that's nice about, you know, a panel debate is you get more people, you give them a platform, right? That's cool. You bring smaller streamers, you bring them into a larger platform, you let more people see them. That's really great. I fucking love that, okay? That aspect of it. But like, you know, beyond that, as far as the quality of discourse, I feel like it really suffers the more people you add to the debate. I don't know, maybe it's just me and my own communication style that I deal better like one-on-one with people, but I love, like, you know, and also I feel like there's a little bit more drama, right? There's a little bit more confrontation there, whereas panels can just be like, you've definitely seen examples of this, like you can just check out of panels. Panel debates are awful and dominated by whoever yells the loudest. Yeah. DemonMama and Vaush having a pretty calm, how's it going, Rainbow? Having a pretty calm and informative conversation about pronouns. This is what they took from us. Yeah. I know, right? Yeah. I was kind of looking forward to that. Oh well.
And I'm not concerned about Mr. Potato Head or even Gina Carano. I'm talking about things like the universities actually telling people that they can't teach right-wing perspectives that's occurring over and over. Again, not my words. This is a word of Heterodux Academy that's founded by a bunch of left-wing professors that talks about how terrible it is. And even left-wing professors that used to say, look, I'm basically lean more towards...
Does chat know anything about the test pattern that I keep on seeing coming across? Do you know what I'm talking about? There's like a test pattern.
Social programs and things. I'm afraid to even teach things on the opposite side of that anymore, because we've gone so far to the left and there's so much power given to these people to just make accusations, such as the professor at Yale that just said, hey, maybe it's okay if someone dresses up like Pocahontas, but they're not Native American. That professor then gets circled and screamed at. This is occurring at university and campuses all over the place, and it's been occurring for 20 years. And
Dylan's got a weird face. Like, I know, I think he's fixing, he's dealing with something. There's a lot you have to deal with behind the scenes when you're hosting a panel. It sometimes can look like you're not doing much of anything. And if you're a middle guy or middle girl, you legit are not doing much of anything. Even Destiny, you're mostly just playing games. But yeah, most hosts, Dylan, John, I don't know what Rob's like as a host, but definitely Dylan and John seem to be doing a lot behind the scenes. So
now we're seeing it fester its way into corporations, into the media, and into other political ways, political venues. We see this occurring. Now, the other thing that I think is worth talking about is we're just saying that, oh, progressivism, that's all good. So, like, while I agree, and we're going to talk about trans issues, am I wrong? That's the third topic. So we could talk specifically on those issues, but the idea of treating people like crap, well, that's not necessarily just a left-wing value to stop doing that. In fact, many conservatives and many Christians, for example, think that treating people with dignity and respect, even if you disagree with their life choices, is something that should be achieved. In the same time that we hear lifestyles,
even if you disagree, even if you consider their identity to be a lifestyle of sin. Rob, that's what you really mean. So fucking say it, you coward. You fucking coward. Fucking say it. That's the problem with Rob, okay? Unironically, is that he's holding his cards close. But, you know, you get a little peek over there and you see, hey, yo, this is just fucking obfuscation. Unironically, obfuscation, dude. This is some bullshit, Rob. Quit hiding behind fucking respectability.
We need to treat people with dignity. Some of the most vile,
like fake dignity,
vitriolic things are being said.
That's not dignity. I don't want dignity. Hey, shithead. Hey, fucking shithead. Dignity is not you fucking humoring me, you asshole, because you think that I'm mentally... No, that is not fucking dignity. Like, do you think we're stupid? What do you actually think? Like, you really think that we're that fucking stupid? That is not respect. That is not respect. And so I don't think DemonMama or anybody owes this guy respect. That's why I tweeted at her a picture of a wrestler, like, with throwing the chair into the ring. And I said, just go house on these motherfuckers. Go house. Because you do not owe them any bit of respect at this point. They have fucking disrespected the shit out of trans people.
By random people on Twitch and Twitter, but by politicians. They're actually encouraging, like people like Maxine Waters is actually encouraging people to chase Republicans out of areas. We see the calls all the time to deplatform Republicans. I could talk about specifically things that critical race theory just being taught in federal government.
Oh my God, they're gonna bitch about critical race theory.
This is being taught in federal agencies. That's how far we've shifted to the left. Again, you have people like James McWhorter, Eric Weinstein. These are traditional leftists that are saying, my God, this is getting too scary. The pendulum has swung too far. So the question we need to ask is this. We agree that if the pendulum swings too far on either side, then it leads to that types of forms of cancel culture. Where is the pendulum right now? And you've already conceded the pendulum has swung far to the left. That's why corporations are virtue signaling to the left. If the culture was on the right, then corporations would know it wouldn't be profitable to virtue signal on the left.
When
so
we
these problems that
say,
we
hey,
see,
Rob,
the actual anti-racism, racism, going after whiteness.
When we say the pendulum has swung to the left, let's be clear about it. We're saying the people have become more progressive. They've chosen. They've left you and your stupidity in the dustbin of history, and they've moved forward towards a new day. That's what that means, okay? Don't try to dress it up like it's some kind of like, yo, they got this weird sponsorship by the establishment. I don't know, man. I think it's Globo Homo probably, right? This is, okay, let me be clear. Rob did not say Globo Homo. Rob has not outed, mask slipped and, anything like that. But like, shit, dude, that is the shit that is often behind these kind of arguments. Often right behind these arguments is some bullshit like that.
Saying to reject whiteness. We see that there's now an industry in propagating race hoaxes because there's so, like with Jussie Smollett, there was just one that
oh god, Jussie Smollett. It's interesting that there's a lot of hand wringing from the audience. Oh my god, yo, we don't see the audience. Okay, so I don't know. Does anybody know? The chat's gone. The chat's gone. It's purged. I can't see it. Did Vaush or Destiny build their reputation on being calm and respectful? I know. That's what I keep on going off on. Look. You can say that DemonMama, can get up in people's faces. You can say maybe she interrupts people sometimes. Maybe she's rude. Maybe she's got an ego, right? Are these anything that guy streamers like Destiny and Vaush have never done? No, they're the exact same things. In fact, they're the things that if she didn't do, she wouldn't be taken seriously as a debate streamer, right? They're things that, like, essentially the debate sphere is like, forcing on her, whether she wants to, maybe she, that's naturally just like she's, that's how she wants to be, but to some extent, like, she doesn't really have a choice, so, and she gets punished and she gets put in a double bind. This is completely a double bind, right? That she can't be like, a shrinking violet, but she can't, blow anybody up. And so she's got to walk this incredibly thin tightrope. And it really sucks because all she's trying to do is, share some memes and fucking, wreck a few debates. Can we, like, let her have that? Can we let her have that? Please, Twitch? Can we just let her have that? Is that so much to ask? Like, I don't understand why people like are like cool with like, you know, Vaush and Destiny, but they see like DemonMama as being beyond the pale somehow. It's so weird. It's so bizarre.
Happened today at Albion College that just came out as another race hoax. These things are getting crazy. The radical push to the left is encouraged.
I mean, you sound like your hair is on fire, but that doesn't really mean that we have to accept your reality in place of our own.
Mentality where the number one goal to achieve is how can I be the biggest victim, and it's encouraged this form of cultural.
Yeah, that's right, Rob. You got us.
Marxism, where instead of looking at people as
cultural Marxism. Here we go. Now, Rob, look, I'm trying to be super good faith with you. I am trying to steal, man, the shit out of what you're saying. But if you keep on talking unironically about cultural Marxism, I'm going to put your transphobia in the framework that maybe it deserves to be seen in.
Individuals. I think there was a
flock around and find out, my dude. Flock around and find out.
Great man once that said we should judge people based on the content of their character. Now we're being told increasingly by the left.
Oh, I hate it when they do this shit. I hate it when they
based on the color of their skin. You even see senators like Duckworth and Humorono that are saying they won't confirm people based on the color of their skin. We see hospitals like in Boston putting out medical journals saying it's time to only disproportionately accept people based on their skin color. We saw the CDC try to give out a vaccine and said that 6.5 more percent people would die, and the number one factor that they gave as to why that was okay based on their recommendation was
look. This is a thing that's weird. Okay, so we got a right winger. He's gish galloping. He's barely explaining some shit, right? And some stuff that with a little bit of scrutiny would just fall apart. If you ever saw a left-winger do this, they would get taken to task. If a left-winger went off a quick rattle of things and all of these things were like, you kind of massaged that fact and, you know, you're kind of misrepresenting this and like, you know what I mean? They just left a trail of kind of like sloppy points, right? They'd get ripped to shit. They would get ripped to shit. And yet, let me guess. There's going to be no scrutiny of these, or if anything, there's going to be like 1 or 2 points that DemonMama or Vaush or somebody gets to take on, and the rest of the shitty argument is going to get left intact. That's what I'm afraid of. Because, like, this is what he's starting to do. I don't fucking understand it, because he's so, like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Or at the very least, he's not explaining what he's talking about. Left-wingers get held to a standard which requires them to explain what they're talking about for some reason. And I think it's because, like what we talked about before, that, you know, it's harder for Dylan to find conservatives, therefore he relies on the same ones, therefore the conservatives that he works with have more power over him. He struts around like Mr. McMahon, but really he's more like Mr. McCucked, because he's getting cucked by CTV and Counterpoints and all of these cuck-servatives. Because, like, it's just complete beta. Anyway, before I get too toxically masculine, let's get back to the debate. Bill Nye had a... Oh, God. Yeah. Haven't tried the Gish Gallop. Yeah, I know. That you see, this is just what I was talking about. Dahlia, this is just what I was talking about. Look, if you have a one-on-one debate, you can take some of that shit on. You know, if somebody gish gallops you can shove it right back down their throat. It's a lot harder on a panel like this, and I'm afraid it's going to get away from them. But we'll see. We can hope for the best, right? We can hope for the best. Okay, here we go.
The people that died would be disproportionately white because elderly people were more disproportionately white. This stuff is running rampant. So all the like nice stuff that you're saying, like, well, hey, shouldn't we treat people with respect, like interracial marriage or gay people? Of course we would. That's not just a progressive mindset to treat them with respect, right? That could be something that's on the conservative side as well. We could have arguments as to politically what the policy should be regarding those groups, but it is clear that right now the pendulum's gone too far to the left, and if it goes further to the left, the insanity that you're seeing today will look like a cakewalk. They'll take away your right to speak. You hear people credibly talking about putting Trump supporters, 9/11 style commissions, putting them in re-education camps, using violence against people. We see the violence that's widespread in the name of the left, and all of it's deemed okay. Even people on the left that are in academia realize this is a disaster, and the pendulum needs to start to swing the other way.
Okay, so I want.
It feels like there should be some 80s butt metal song about Gish Galloping.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
That was just, there was so much. Like, there was so much.
We'd do smaller chunks, but I felt like
I feel like every time it's one thing to talk, at length on one thing, and it's another thing to just fire off like a list of totally contextless random things that sound vaguely scary. It's a lot of fear mongering, and it sounds like sort of conspiratorial,
exchange
rattling off of these things. I mean,
them.
I feel like anybody could do this. I
And
feel
the
like
rest
a
of it's just mental
9/11
masturbation.
9/11 truther could come on here and do the exact same thing. And what are you supposed to do? Ask them for a fucking book about it? Like, you got to keep your claims down. I don't even know what to tackle there. I did want to comment on one thing that John brought up, and I think that this might serve as a little bit of maybe a small olive branch between John Burke and I, which is that when I talk about finger pointing, it's not because I hate the right or anything. When you talk about finger pointing, the reason why I point the finger at the right is because they're still doing this to this day. I mean, the RNC, their platform is anti-gay marriage to this day. They are still. So like the problem that we have is that the right is still being predominantly the arbiters of the most serious forms of what you call cancel culture.
Cancel culture.
Wait, no, hold on. So yes, I would agree with you that definitely did stem from the right. Yeah, I agree with you 100% there.
Yeah,
but and that's what my hope is for in regards to the GOP, to progress in the sense of being pro marriage, pro gay, but go even further to say pro do whatever you want. And there should be no government. But my question to you though is who's anti-gay that's a politician calling for this?
Wait, like as
anti-gay
far
marriage.
As anti-gay marriage. Wait, that's literally the platform of the RNC in 2020.
Can you show me?
Yeah, just look it up. I promise you. Just go to the RNC's platform. They were against gay marriage in 2020. This was
the only reason I disagree with you. I've literally
finger the right?
heard no one say anything.
Finger the right?
Just so you know, Donald Trump, who was the Republican candidate controlling office, banned trans people from the military against the advice of the military.
That has nothing to do with gay marriage, though.
I'm talking about examples. I'm talking about examples of what I would consider to be the most serious forms of cancel culture.
Finger.
Yes, it is a fact that the Republican Party has included for traditional marriage. Even until this last election, and maybe that'll change. I hope it does. But until it does, I'm not going to stop pointing the finger at where it's due.
What do his numbers
if you want to say that like the left gets really mad about Star Wars, to me that's very, very inconsequential in terms of when we're talking about actual legislation that affects the lives of people like myself and all over the country. And we see this has a downstream effect as well. When you have people who are willing to push blanket bans on trans people who are a vice president who less than 5 years ago was advocating in favor of conversion therapy for gay kids. This has a downstream effect on what the accepted standard is in our country, and that is, in my opinion, a much more dangerous form of cancel culture than any of the I don't even know other things that have been rattled off here. I hope that we can agree that that's like a little more important than a Star Wars actress who maybe the fans of the Star Wars series are too woke and they don't like her jokes on Twitter and they got mad about it. Like I recognize this could be a problem in the age of
multipolarity in the
post-COVID
world. Oh my God,
people like me who were banned completely from serving in the U.S. military. Like,
if I can respond to that because that was directed at me. I know, Rob, I know you want to get an edge in real quick, but so you keep bringing up Gina Carano and you keep doing this compare and contrast using her as the example. That example was made originally in regards to leftist cancel culture.
DemonMama is pretty
so what you're using it for in comparison right now is not applicable. You keep bringing that up. Now, you want to talk about conversion therapy for children and stuff like that. Do you think that is covered under free speech and somebody's individual beliefs?
Do I believe that the right to torture a child?
No. Vote to speak it, to say it.
Oh, sure, they can say that, but they also have the right to criticize them for that. And I also have the right to point that out. To point out that we have somebody who became the vice president of the United States, and I can use this as a point to say, hey, actually, we haven't really swung very far left. If a guy who 5 years ago was advocating in favor of conversion therapy, which is torture, just for the record,
he can't think out of a wet paper bag. Yeah, he's kind of a.
Is that the term cancel culture equates a lot of different things that cause
different levels of harm.
So I will say something. I'll acknowledge it up the front. First of all, there are a lot of people on the left, and I mean all the way up to academia, who are very, very sensitive and often engage in these ideas in a performatively bad faith or sometimes in a ridiculously
it's making me very
condemning way. Like they go out to hurt people because they disagree. I think that is a thing that the left does from time to time. And I do think that right now the left has more power generally when it comes to wielding corporate support. There are more people who tend to agree with the left in terms of most big social issues. BLM was supported at like 70% at its peak, gay marriage about 70% right now. So these companies are going to tend to side more with those perspectives because it makes them more money. The problem is the thing that people on the left are concerned about first and foremost isn't really cancellation. It's real world harm that's measured in metrics. So with black people, for for example, the generational income gap between black and white people in this country is enormous. When we talk about the prison industrial complex, the disparity in the rates and extent of incarceration when controlling for all of the other relevant factors. So when you're just looking at race, black people get shafted pretty hard when it comes to trans issues, all the stuff they have to put up with, healthcare and discrimination from employers and gay people, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
so these are types of harm that aren't just cancellation. I mean, this is serious stuff. This is marked social progress stuff. This is the stuff that people 100 years from now are going to look back and they're going to go, wow, glad I didn't live back then, you know, because everyone 100 years from now will be a black, gay, trans person,
in Discord?
But the problem is, as long as those problems exist, people on the left are going to be sensitive about those issues. It's almost an immediate and inevitable reaction. As long as LGBT kids are at like an 18 times higher rate to get kicked out because of their sexuality or whatever, they're going to be sensitive about those issues. And that sensitivity sometimes manifests in a way that's toxic or unfair. And I mean that when I say toxic or unfair, because I don't think, now I'm not saying this is either of you, John, Rob, but say you're a mom or a dad. I'll just use my parents. My parents are progressive people. Really, they vote Democrat, they're nice folks. But when I explained trans stuff to them for the first time 6 years ago, they were lost. They were like 55. It was beyond them. And you know, with time, I guess they've acclimated a bit to it, but I know that if they had had that conversation with the wrong type of left-leaning person, they would have been called a fascist. I know that for a fact. I'm thankful that I was the one to have that convo with them, you know, I'm their son. As long as these problems exist, people will react to them in harmful ways. So I think what we have to do, the only thing we can do, is, you know, grit our teeth, try to ignore the discourse, and work on fixing the actual underlying problems. Because once we fix the actual underlying problems, we're no longer at risk of invalidating those concerns by criticizing people who are trying to cancel other people on social media. At that point, the discourse is open season, because we're no longer fighting over an underlying set of real material problems, you know?
And to build on that, I just wanted to have one thing on there, just while this is relevant.
It'll be quick, I'm sure. Go ahead.
It will be very quick. All I just want to say is that's fine. I just want to say that, like, do you blame people for being a little bit sensitive about this when you might not be able to get the treatment you need to live your life, if you might be fired from a job just for who you are? I can understand why young people on the internet are a little reactive about that. No, I'm just saying in general. Yeah.
No, I do get it. I do get it. It's just, you know, it's just an unfortunate situation all around.
Okay, Rob?
Okay. Yeah. So again, what they're conflating is just something like Gina Carano or Mr. Potato. Like, I agree with Vaush that cancel culture can be many things, but I think they're erroneous when they say that we're talking about actual policies on one hand versus just mean words on the other. That's not what's going on. Again, I cited in what I said last, a bunch of real world implications. We now have sitting senators that are saying that they will choose to confirm someone based on their skin color. We have the CDC offering suggestion on who gets a vaccine, saying that their suggestion will result in 6.5% more people, up to 6.5% more people dying, but that's okay because they're disproportionately white. I could read I'll just read like some of the, let me ask you this, DemonMama, if I could just get a quick answer. What is torture about conversion therapy? Can you explain just real quick why that's torture?
Oh, no. I don't want to violate TOS real quick, but if I might explain very bluntly, many common conversion therapy techniques involve placing electrodes onto the genitals of children.
Well, that's clearly torture. Yeah, if that happens,
but guess what? That's incredibly common. In fact, nearly every type of conversion therapy, which is basically parents having the ability to ship their kid off to a camp where they are told they are wrong for the most basic form of who they are, is a form of psychological torture.
Let me just ask you this. Let me rephrase the question. Do you think that telling someone that there's an inherent flaw with them by immutable characteristics of how they were born is a really bad thing? Isn't that part of what's bad about conversion therapy? Saying that they're more.
Can you explain that further? Because
saying that the way someone was born makes them flawed. Do you think that's a terrible thing?
I don't know what that means, so okay, I don't know.
Sure. Right. Great. So let's just go. That's fine. That's fine. So in a series of events at the Treasury Department and federal financial agencies, diversity trainer Howard Ross taught employees that America was built in the backs of people who were enslaved, and that all white Americans are complicit in the system of white supremacy by automatic response to the ways we're taught. In the accompanying documents, Mr. Ross argues that whites share an inborn oppressive streak. Whiteness, employees are told, includes white privilege and white supremacy. Consequently, whites struggle to own their racism. He instructs managers to conduct listening sessions in which black employees can speak with their experience and be seen in their pain, while white employees are instructed to sit in discomfort and not feel fill the silence with your own thoughts and feelings. Members of the group you're aligned with, Mr. Ross says, are not obligated to like you, thank you, feel sorry for you, or forgive you. For training like this, Mr. Ross receives $5 million. I could put about a dozen examples of just federal trainings where that stuff occurs. You're not going to pop in here. I'm going to keep talking.
Yes, you asked me a question about conversion therapy.
You're not going to pop in here.
Now you are trying to play
it. You seem to be the person that has a problem with
Okay, I just want to be short here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the song, Thank you very much.
Telling someone that there is something immoral about them based on factors they can't control and how they were born.
Okay, Rob. DemonMama. Sorry.
I actually I'm going to be as diplomatic here as I possibly can, That is one of the stupidest comparisons I've ever encountered on any panel in my entire life.
It's 'cause
The
you
idea that
weren't on
some
that
random
panel with
jackass who
CTV
does some
that
dumb presentation to a bunch
was.
of like half asleep treasury workers that happens to like have some cringe takes about race on it is at all equivalent to shipping your kids away to
training is
facilities
not the
where in many
same
cases they
as
were sexually abused
conversion
in the
therapy.
name
Yeah, I
of,
know,
of
right?
converting them, quote unquote, from their sexuality or gender identity. That is like, it is offensive on like 10 levels. And this is the type of shit that I've been talking about. In fact, I had a note on here about talking about building off of Vaush's point about good faith discussions.
These
types of I'm going to interject since she said I guess this is
actually
how it
you're
works.
not going
to interject.
I will
I guess
actually
wait. Okay.
Next time I want to interject. I want to get in on that.
Okay, there's a lot of interjections, but I do.
Well, there's only one person interjecting. Let's be clear.
Interjecting.
Okay, there was just 3 interjections. Okay, so
got it.
I'm gonna have DemonMama finish their point. We're gonna throw it to Rob, then we're gonna throw it
I
to
interject,
Vaush.
so now it's 4.
Okay, great. And then John. Okay, DemonMama, Rob, Vaush, John. There's the order.
I think this is an incredibly bad faith, and not only that, but shockingly inconsiderate comparison to make between some
did it again
corporate
with the
training
thing?
or government training in some random division that you think is slightly objectionable versus children literally being tortured.
Yeah, this was
which,
some
by the way,
bullshit.
it's not just me who says that it's torture. It's every serious medical and psychological organization in the world believes that that's torture. And you're going to try and play equivalence to that. I don't think that I owe that the time of day, but I'm going to give it just a little bit of time of day for the purposes of the viewers here. Conversion therapy is torture. You not liking a presentation that you have to see as an adult at your job and having a problem with that is not even close to the same thing. With all due respect, stop being such a snowflake.
Rob? All right, so it's ironic that she calls us the entire presentation where we're talking about
it's pretty cringe.
She wanted to make this topic
but somebody should tell him
is being a victim. That's
somebody
totally
who's
the
his
identity
friend.
of DemonMama, and she tries to
tell him
interject
he's
that into every
posting
possible
cringe
conversation.
so
That's why
he
she
can
feels that she
stop.
can interrupt people, treat people rudely because she feels she's a victim. And I only bring it up because it's a microcosm of the problem of pendulum switching too far to the left. So she could behave in ways that are rude or just, it's not a big deal. I don't really care. She could interject. She could make all these proclamations and demands and get on moral high horse. And it's all in the name of her claiming to be a perpetual victim. Now, if people are having things attached to their genitals, clearly that's a step further than what I was saying. I said it while you were saying that. Like, yeah, that's clearly torture. The majority of conversion therapy didn't include things like that. The thing that's offensive about conversion therapy that most people that understand what it is would say is it would be offensive to tell people based on the way they were born, if they were born a certain way, that they needed to change who they were because there was a flaw. You saying that this just occurred in one agency. We're not talking about private people deciding what to do, although that might be immoral or heinous. We're talking about the left. The pendulum has swung so far that you're literally allowed to call all white people racist, and that is taught in federal training programs. I can go through a couple more real quick. There's literally dozens of things I can come up with.
Somebody told me that's because like estrogen used to be red.
Executives held a racially segregated training session for white male employees. The 3-day event, which was led by a company called White Men, its full diversity partners set the goal of examining white male culture, making employees take responsibility for their white privilege, male privilege, heterosexual privilege. One of the opening exercises of the instructors from the whiteboard that white male culture can be associated with white supremacists, KKK, Aryan Nation, MAGA hats, and mass killings. On the final day, trainers asked employees to rate others for people of color, and people apologized for their privilege in being white and promised to be a better person. Department of Homeland Security diversity trainers held a session on microaggressions based on the psychologist Harold Sue. His academic work, Sue argues that white Americans have been fed a racial curriculum based on falsehoods, unwarranted fears of belief in their own superiority, and thus have been socialized into oppressor roles. Trainers taught that Homeland Security employees are a myth of meritocracy, and colorblindness is the foundation of racist microaggressions and microinequities. The trainers insisted a statement such as America is the land of opportunity, everybody can succeed in this society if they work hard enough, etc., was racism. If white employees disagree, his point is dismissed as a denial of individual
this
racism,
is the Coca-Cola thing, right?
The point is this stuff occurs all over the place.
This is the Coca-Cola thing that Carolyn Borsinko exposed,
which I disagree. That all of the advances we were talking about of the left of treating people decently based on all these characteristics, even if we say that was all part of the left, the problem is the only way we can advance as a society is to have a pendulum that doesn't swing too far to the extreme one side or another. When we have these arguments being made, this is what I'm talking about with cancel culture. You can't even disagree with this. We all know this. Like, you can pretend that it's not the case, but we all know this. For example, we saw with the Covington kids. Did you ever think we would get to a place where adult black racist and a Native American agreeing with them could surround a bunch of kids, make racial and homophobic slurs, and the media would demonize the kids and celebrate the adult racists?
Now you're mischaracterizing the situation.
Right now, and it's
look, the media mischaracterized the situation.
Okay. So
in the beginning, but now Rob is really
categorically. I just want to point out that I'm not saying the examples you've cited are entirely invalid. The reason you're citing these examples is because you can't do what I can do to prove the opposite. The fact that there are demographic disadvantages experienced by certain groups. So rather than me talking about individual examples or like this was like a bad workplace training seminar or something like that, I can just point to a swath of disproportionate outcomes.
Let me
black and white. I just want to say, I know that's not what you were trying to do. I know it's apples to oranges. So I just want to say that with regards to your arguments there, look, a lot of what you're talking about, I call it like these Robin DiAngelo like white guilt conferences, okay? What it usually is it's like white people draft up a big PowerPoint presentation to show to other white people in some government or high corporate position where they explain how being white makes you mean or something. Look, white people, racism's a thing. White people have been dealing with the consequences of them enacting white supremacy broadly in society for a while now.
Thing that we're
Sometimes
talking about,
while out and do some
I don't know.
That.
This is the thing. Okay, Rob is allowed to get away with bringing up so much shit without citing its sources. It makes it hard to attack because you don't know exactly what thing he's talking about. So you don't know, like, wait, I think that's bullshit, but I'm not sure which bullshit thing you're talking about. So I can't really, go forward with that. But, and then the other reason is that, like, he just doesn't know what he's fucking talking about. And he gets away with that anyway. But, this is like, the kind of thing that if they were able to spend more time with each thing instead of being gish-galloped, they would be able to take apart quite easily. Because as we know, Vaush knows and has read all theory.
Porn, okay? There's a big market for that. Big black.
But no, dude, white guilt porn, like this Robin DiAngelo shit. So here's the deal. Carolyn Borosinko came up with the story. Yes, that Carolyn Borosinko. The story said that Coca-Cola had they'd gotten an inside source. They'd captured some cringe slides that Coca-Cola was showing at their corporate DEI training, okay? And the slides said Robin DiAngelo's name on them. It is misgendering. Really makes me wonder if Dylan is a grifter. I think also part of it is there's so much bullshit that you don't have time. One-on-one, you might get it. Yes. That's why I like one-on-one debates. I like one-on-one debates so much better. So the Robin DiAngelo, it turned out that, like, here's what happened. Somehow they took something that Robin DiAngelo had written or had worked on, and they, like, butchered it. Like, and it was to the point that when Robin DiAngelo saw the fucking slide set, the slide set that they were showing to the employees with her name on it, she said, "Get my name the fuck off of that. This is nothing." So even Robin DiAngelo, which, I'm not a big fan, just as Vaush is not a big fan of Robin DiAngelo, and I think the fact that she has become the poster woman for, this kind of weird corporate white guilt. Really what it does is it whitewashes the corporation's reputation. So if they go down the line and later on somebody does something racist at the corporation, they can turn around and say, look, we paid for DEI training. We did everything that we could. We were worried about this. We were concerned about this. And it looks like our employee just did not pay attention to their DEI training, so it's not our fault. And we wash our hands of it. That's what they're doing. They're covering their asses. And they don't really give a fuck about, like, racism.
Muscular black guys having sex with white wives, Is this white people externalizing their guilt and fetishizing it? I don't know. This Robin DiAngelo stuff strikes to me similarly, okay? I'm just not a big fan of how they handle it.
Wow.
If I could just ask
I want
to hear the question, but then I want to finish with the...
Oh my God.
So, like, for example, we would say...
No questions about cuckold porn, please.
No. When you talk about, like, structural inequities, and I'll talk about that the next time we get to talk, but just to ask you would say one of the examples of the structural inequities, like law enforcement's treatment of black men.
Bad for her.
Yeah, it's part of it.
Okay, well then, if would we also say that law enforcement's mistreatment of men, which are incarcerated in all of the negative factors that compare whites to blacks?
The criminal
so then how is it? So the left is
encouraged
that. That's right. So
I feel kind of bad for her.
Correct?
No, actually, the issue has gotten better because of feminism. Feminists have fought against many of the discriminatory practices that have led to the disproportionate sentencing of men. But yeah, men do get shafted in the criminal justice system.
That's right. And the point is this: the left and feminism, and what we see is often talking about the patriarchy and it's demonizing men. And the truth of the matter is
I don't believe feminism is about demonizing men.
Okay, but we could have that discussion. That's fine. But
there are feminists who dislike men.
It's non-falsifiable. Like, it's non-falsifiable. What we see ends up happening. You say, oh, if there's inequities in a group that we generally consider a group that's a minority or a group that's underprivileged or oppressed, we say that the left can save them. We need the left. But if we see a group that the left considers to be a majority group or an oppressor group, that they're being negatively affected, you say, again, it's the left that can save them. And I make that point to say, when you talk about these structural inequities,
like,
just
look,
when you talk
how
about...
can anybody, like, with the way that Jesse Lee Peterson just absolutely destroyed Vaush when Vaush was on the Jesse Lee Peterson's show, it's just like, how could he even show his face again after that shellacking that he took at the hands of the amazing host of the Fallen State, Mr. Jesse Lee Peterson, friend of the VOD. Yes, how could Vaush even show his face after being exposed as such a beta?
These structural inequities and how that's different, you aren't proving that a further shift to the left would benefit these structural inequities anyways.
Because the term a further shift to the left is so vague as to be useless here. When we're talking about the disparity between men and women's treatment in the criminal justice system, we're talking about a disparity that has been alleviated thanks to feminism. There isn't some group of men's rights advocates who've been doing the work on this. Feminists have been doing the work on that. In this regard, yes, with regards to the criminal justice system, men are oppressed. It feels funny saying it, but it's true.
I would love to do something fun,
men significantly outstrips the
my chat wants you to try Apex Legends
relative to white people. Now, do many people talk about this? No, because a lot of people on the left and the right don't disagree with the underlying biases that lead to that being a problem. They say, yeah, men are more dangerous. Like men should be locked up for longer. But I feel like that's an issue that the left, while not entirely, has been at least partially working on. So to speak to the broader point there, I don't like these Robert DiAngelo conferences. I don't like this whole telling white people that they're all racist by default of being white thing. I don't think these conversations are productive. And frankly, I think that their content runs antithetical to what I was taught sociologically. The idea,
strangely enough, this particular subject matter, this is kind of like the it's basically what we were talking about on Bird Brains with Shark and Mel on the latest video that I put up. Finally got to the Shark and Mel debate, and it is a doozy. It's like a hot, spicy one. People love this debate, but it's a similar, discourse with Shark taking the role of what Vaush is espousing here.
Behind intersectionality isn't that like some power groups are worse than other non-power groups. It's that we're all bound up in a huge collection of different types of biases, benefits, and negatives that make up and shape our life experiences. So a white person may be racist. That's a thing that can happen. But why are they racist? Probably because they live in a society that allows them to internalize some ideas about race. But they aren't the only ones who live in that society. Latin, Asian, and Black people live in the same society, and there are plenty of Black.
Isn't Dread Stunlock a woman's name though? Like, it sounds like a stripper's name, right? Dread Stunlock? I was just a little confused, but, I think you might be a beta. I think you might be a little bit of a beta. A little bit of a beta. Okay. That's alright.
Black people who have internalized basically the same ideas about themselves that white people have internalized about them.
It's all really
complicated, and that's why I do not like.
Did we unironically just have a Jesse Lee Peterson stan in here? Like, really? Not Jordan Peterson, but Jesse Lee Peterson. That's amazing.
These conferences, these workplace training panels, it's because they simplify it. They make it essentialist. They tell white people they should feel guilty.
I can't believe there's another 2 hours left of this.
A thing they haven't done. But we need to be clear again. While these things are problems, and I do want them addressed, I don't think this speaks to the incredible disparity between the types of real problems conservatives are trying to address and the types of real problems that people on the left are trying to address.
Like, I feel you, Neko Girl, but it's just like somebody else's mental health, we'll just like leave that alone, right? That's not really for us to comment on. But yeah, no, I feel you. I understand your frustration, and you are fucking right in that frustration.
Because I would take the left side on those issues pretty much 99 times out of 100.
JLP makes Trump look like a PhD level speaker.
It seems like they have a much better idea of what solutions need to be levied here.
And thank you, Tom is strong. Thank you for the follow. I feel like you followed me a few times, but this one will, hopefully this one will be the
final point, very last one. Conversion therapies. Pretty bad. I don't know how we got on that topic. I left for a pee break.
Thank you, Armor and Quells.
Legitimately just how we got there.
I should skip to when DemonMama is talking. Can you if you feed me timestamps, I will.
I got it. So basically what
feed me timestamps, chat.
This
is Dylan's VOD, okay?
The topic of conversion therapy came up, and Rob Noor was, I believe,
I realize I don't care for Mel's take largely because she elevates race above all other marginalizations. Oh, yeah. That's exactly her argument. Being white, disabled person, constantly aware of how little disability gets paid. Oh my God, you are so right. Disability yo, there's so many levels on which this is true, right? You've got visible disabilities and, you know, discrimination against those. You've got invisible disabilities and not, you know, and discrimination and an invalidation of those, right? You've got, like, you know, oh God, there's so fucking much shit into this. There's so much shit into this. And the way that, like, disability is handled. Oh yeah, massive lurker. That's very based. That's very based. Well, it's fun. It's always good to see you come. And I guess I don't see you go, but, like...
Somewhat comparing it to the classes some corporations have on whiteness, I believe.
Federal government.
Yeah, or federal government.
Saying that someone's born evil or someone was born flawed and having a conversion therapy for it is wrong.
I would agree with that.
Not what conversion therapy.
I have a question for you.
Comparison. It is a stupidly offensive comparison, and it actually drives me nuts that nobody's jumping on this.
This is so good.
With all due
this
respect,
is so good, DemonMama. Hell
holy
yeah.
shit, this is such an absolute fucking false equivalency that I can't even believe it. You're talking about some rattling off so fast that nobody in the audience can even understand it, and thank God, because their heads would have probably collapsed from how stupid it was. To compare some random, like, poorly put together Robin DiAngelo, like, training to systemic conversion therapy that, in the best of circumstances, involves shipping your kids away to a mental asylum where they will be taught on a daily basis. They will be monitored and taught to reject the most core parts of their identity. A type of therapy which is shown to induce severe and long-lasting mental health issues. And you have the gall to call me the fucking victim here? You absolute sad snowflake. You should walk away from this with your tail tucked between your legs. You
Anybody got a suggestion for a...
Now, I'm going to go to that.
Wait, I got a question. Okay, wait, hold on. I had a question.
Yeah, you're right, Chad. You're right. We could use, like, a palate cleanser. Here, I'll look for something in the background.
I mean, that was pretty.
Was that a violation? I'm sorry. Was that a violation of your policy rules, Dylan?
Which rule? Which one?
What she just did? Was she being nice? Was that considered
well,
nice?
No, I said at the beginning. I suggested it, but it isn't a rule.
Weaselly little snowflake bitch. God damn it, steak and whiskey, man. You know, if you're gonna fucking live by the toxic masculine sword, you're gonna fucking get cut by that shit, dude. DemonMama doesn't take prisoners. She will fucking...
Okay. It's like, it's, you know, it's...
You're just fucking coping, dude. You're just fucking coping. You try to play the refs. You fucking bitch, baby. Okay, I shouldn't say it that way. God damn it, chat. This shit is rubbing off on me. This shit makes me so... Like, you don't understand. Like, chat, I'm like a fighter and shit. I don't know. For some reason, I take it on, though. Like, it's a protective armor, and it's like, it's not good, chat. It's really not good for me to think like that. I don't want to be calling anybody a bitch, baby. That's fucked up. Like, I'm just like, I'm so pissed off that this dude, like, held such a double standard. Anyway, let's get back to it. And I'll look for something like a palate cleanser in the background.
If I said to you, real quick, this is all I'm saying. If I had a seminar at the federal government where I said black people are inherently inferior and they need to repent for their blackness, you would be like, that's crazy.
Wait, first of all, I need to be a stickler for details here, because usually these conferences aren't saying white people are inherently inferior. It's usually that they're subject to a set of preconditioned biases that are ingrained in them by society, and this affects almost all white people. It's not a moral essentialization in the same way.
All white people are racist. All white people are racist and need to repent.
Well, depending on which academic you ask, you would say that all people are racist, period. And that's a language that I tend to subscribe to myself.
Let's be clear. I read specific
examples. This question very badly. I'm begging you to receive this question.
Sure.
The issue that I have with this comparison... No, wait, I'll answer that in a second. The question that I have is, given the fact that demographically, it seems like the left is fighting for groups which are demographically disadvantaged, what changes would you want made? Because I don't like these Robin DiAngelo workplace seminars, but it seems like they're deviations from an otherwise fairly consistent set of policies and cultural prescriptions which maintain white hegemony. Like, I agree these things aren't good, but the reason why they're exceptional is because in pretty much every other measurable demographic in society, white people tend to be on top, whether it's representation in higher government, CEOs, whether we're talking about educational attainment or wealth disparity. So even though these things are a problem, we're not talking about a problem that is manifesting itself is to such an extent that it's leading white people to be oppressed. So given that people on the left seem to be fighting for the oppressed, what changes do you want made? How do we address that oppression without, in your mind, enabling some sort of backlash?
Okay, that was like the longest question in the world.
But no right after that, John Burke hasn't got to talking forever, so I didn't want to
right.
Oh,
yeah, we gotta have
shelf
Burke.
it then, I guess.
We gotta
no, go ahead. I'm interested in
Burke.
hearing Rob's.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Chat, don't forget to listen to
Just because you're
Burke.
saying that you're speaking up for a problem doesn't mean that you're necessarily solving it. In fact, it seems that a lot of the so-called liberal and leftists that seek to speak up for minority communities are doing so from a position of privilege anyways. And so just because they pay lip service to the cause doesn't mean that they're getting results. For example, we could see the most left-wing controlled political areas in this country claim to be speaking up for African Americans and other populations, but actually they're worse worse off in those areas than they are in most other areas. We could also see that the left has resulted in, just real quick, like you got to, we can see that this sort of mentality has led to a like all you have to do is look at, like, the left talks about helping the poor. So let's go to LA and look how the poor are doing. Not good. The left says that they're going to help black people. Let's go to the areas they control and see how things are going. Not good. So you're conflating the idea. And we've already, like, so you're conflating the idea. If we see groups that are disproportional, you say, and we acknowledge those groups, or we claim that they are oppressed groups, then it's the left seeking to help them. But I would argue a lot of the policies of the left. No, it's let me. I would argue that a lot of the policies of the
governors, therefore the left is causing black poverty, is a completely ridiculous point. Black people tend to live in areas that, like inner city areas, for a wide variety of demographic reasons, and they tend to vote Democrat because Republicans have been more overtly racist in the past 40 years. The fact that we're not talking about which leaders are doing what. We're talking about solutions. I want reparations. I support Black Lives Matter. I want criminal justice reform. I want police reform. The ideas that I and the rest of the left are proposing, infrastructural reform, jobs programs, these are ideas I have that assist the impoverished, that assist the oppressed.
So for example, we can see the areas,
like
so we can see the areas that have came closest to embracing the ideologies of the left you want are actually worse for the very populations that they're claiming to solve. In addition to other people, and so for example,
hurt those people.
Well, so for example, Black Lives Matter, you say you endorse. Homicides are up almost 200% in inner city America, in many inner city African American communities, because Black Lives Matter pushed Black Lives Matter pushed a narrative that led to defunding police or demoralizing police, which has directly led almost every time.
Wait. No, wait. Do you have any evidence that the increase in violence is because BLM made police not want to do their jobs? The reason why violence is not up is because of the pandemic.
Okay, so for example, no, violence hasn't gone up because of the pandemic. There's no evidence for that whatsoever.
No, they're absolutely.
So, for example, we can see in Portland, we can see that the mayor of Portland originally defunded the police. Now he's calling for $32 million in increased police funding because they realized it was a huge mistake to defund the police. The same is true in areas like New York, because they cut the salary of the police that they were giving.
They did. They cut by like about 16 million. No, hold on. Can I just interject something real quick? So to go off of what Vaush and Rob are talking about here, there are parts I agree and disagree with both of you. I think that in a sense that the BLM definitely had inflammatory rhetoric that pushed into the regards of which helped with the overall idea of defunding the police, which was a horrible idea. We need a police reformation. We need better training. So I think is that what you're saying, Rob, in regards to that's how it led to it? Like, not saying BLM is the cause, like the direct, like they were the ones that went in there caused this violence. It was the propaganda pushed by the BLM in regards to defunding the police, which led to the increase in violence. And the actual Seattle and Portland places like that, it was actually shown. There's articles all over about that. They're actually saying, hey, we cut funding in the wrong areas. We need it back. Now we have police that are not being paid. Police are quitting. We can't hire enough people. We can't get qualified people to apply. Therefore, we're having a spike in violence. So I think, yes, I do agree that violence did increase as a result of the pandemic because people were stuck at home. You have like the case of the Les Miserables, Jean Valjean stealing a loaf of bread to feed his family. I can't blame these people when they're told, by the way, by the government that you can't work. What are you supposed to do to make ends meet? Well, you turn to criminal activity. And I can't say that I blame these people. I can't. I would do the same thing to feed my family. But at the same token, yes, I think that a lot of what the BLM supported, or a lot of the inflammatory stuff that got pushed out, and I wanted to lead into this point, is that I think that we're looking at the zealots in each movement and painting the entire movement because of the extremists. And I think that's magnified due to social media. I think a lot of these things that you've discussed, like everybody's discussed, were needed in our society. We did need to progress. We did need a lot of issues. Say, for example, like BLM brought some very good issues to light in regards to economic disadvantage by the black community, mainly inheritance wealth, which had they not pushed that, I never would have actually said, you know what, I want to look this up. This is actually a very interesting thing. And a lot of Republicans will, no, I don't want to hear that. It's like, no, hear me out. And the reason I think a lot of Republicans' ears are closed, or we are consistently being screamed at and told that, well, you're this, you're that, based upon the zealots of a movement that are like the representation of the whole, according to some, which I disagree with adamantly. So a good faith conversation.
Do we need a palate cleanser? Do we need a palate cleanser? Police don't have enough rocket launcher. No shit. Yeah. Or drones or anything. Yeah. Do we need a we've got we could watch. There's a Surfs video on continuation of the Mike from PA thing. I don't know, maybe that's even worse. Maybe that's more depressing. Do we need something uplifting and wholesome? Do we need something uplifting and wholesome, chat? I feel do you want to does anybody have something to nominate? It's not going to get me yeeted in some way that's not going to let Alf in. And please don't be spirit science this time, because I got in trouble for watching it last time. An uplifting, wholesome nomination? What was that? Meow. 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 Meow, meow, meow. Strange Aeon's Furby. Okay, I'll find it. I'll find your Strange Aeon Furby video. Because I need a break anyway. I gotta take this, like... I gotta take this, like, hoodie off. I love Strange Aeons, by the way. Anytime is a good excuse to listen to Strange Aeons. Wait, long Furby? Birthing Furby with 4 arms? Custom Furbies. Wait, what is the Furby? Furby. Long Furby. Okay.
Hello, my friends. It's finally time.
Strange Aeons.
Great
So
start. I would say most of you are probably already familiar with my son.